Do they touch much on the immigration?
Want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read him. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay? We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. Oh yeah, Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be this year. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. We want Mashiach now. Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Hey!
So welcome everyone. Welcome back, Graham. So
Thank you, Ariel. Great to be back.
So tonight we're morning. That's not even a thing, but yeah, this morning, we'll be playing a little bit of Crusader Kings and talking about basically why the world is the way that it is today and how that ties back to the past. But figured we could get started with this. So
Charlemagne's interest wasn't just economic. For him, Jews were living proof of the truth of the Christian gospel, and he saw himself as a descendant of the biblical kings, David and Solomon. Soon, important Jewish communities established themselves in Mainz, Speyer, and Worms. They maintain close links amongst each other and call themselves Shum, after the three first letters of the place names in Hebrew. Since Shum is also the Hebrew word for garlic, the plant becomes a symbol of this alliance. It didn't take long for the fame of these three cities to reach across the borders of the empire. In the mid-10th century, some of the Kalonymos family settle in Mainz. The city belongs to Ashkenaz. Three cities to becomes a symbol of this alliance. It didn't take long for the fame of these three cities to reach across the borders of the empire. In the mid-10th century, some of the Kalonymos family settle in Mainz. The city belongs to Ashkenaz. That's what the Jews call the settlement area along the River Rhine. Later, this term will be applied to all of Germany, France, and also Eastern Europe. Religious education is considered a high social ideal amongst the Jews. Rabbis and scholars increased the fame and standing of a family. This was also Kalonymos ben Mushalem's path. His parents decided to pay to send their eldest son to the yeshiva, the Jewish academy. The plan is that he become a rabbi and give his full attention to his studies and the scriptures. In return, his parents are willing to support him for the rest of his life. The number of Jews in the Ashkenazi area increases during the 11th century. From being internationally active traders working for princes and bishops, they become urban merchants. They don't live in isolation, but in contact with many Christians. But their business acumen causes jealousy amongst some of their Christian competitors. Kalonymos ben Mushalem is a rabbi in Mainz. He too is an esteemed citizen of Mainz, both amongst the Jews and the Christians. At this time, the conflicts between the traders are only petty rivalries. Right into the late 11th century, Jews and Christians lived together mostly in peace. The Jews frequently lived together in a quarter or in a street near the marketplace. That is practical both for trading and for mutual support. But it also makes possible a life in accordance with the halakha, the Jewish religious law, with Jewish butchers, bakers and doctors. And the synagogue is not allowed to be any further away than 1 kilometer on the Sabbath, Friday evening. The synagogue is the center of the community, as a place for prayer, but also a place of assembly. Women aren't permitted to enter the inner area out of a fear that they could distract the men. They stay in the adjoining room during the service. The mikvah is also close by. The ritual bath in Speyer is one of the best preserved from the Middle Ages in Europe. Men and women visited it particularly on feast days to symbolically free themselves of all physical and spiritual impurities. According to Jewish law, the ritual bath is only allowed to be fed by living, that is, running water. Only spring water or groundwater can be used. This peaceful coexistence that has existed for decades is threatened by the call to the Crusades. In November 1095, Pope Urban II convenes a council in Clermont-Ferrand. On the penultimate day, he calls for the liberation of the holy city of Jerusalem, which has been ruled by Muslims for 400 years. Arm yourselves with God's zeal. Gird your swords to your sides. It is better to die in battle than to see our people and the saints suffer. Pope Urban spoke of destruction in Jerusalem and assaults on pilgrims. His appeal, both the rich and the poor should set out to come to the aid of the Christians in the Orient. Deus lo vult, God wishes it, is the closing sentence of his speech. Thousands follow him enthusiastically. Everyone feels called to become a crusader. Religious fanatics, impoverished nobles, peasants with no rights, day laborers and the unemployed. They all want to be a part of Christ's army. Their symbol is a cross made of cloth. They are convinced that they are fighting for a great cause, and so they leave for Jerusalem. As a reward for their willingness to fight, the Pope promises them the forgiveness of all their sins
one of the biggest deceptions.
and eternal life. Not all self-proclaimed crusaders leave for Jerusalem.
You haven't heard me on
There are
indulgences,
unbelievers in our own country too, they say.
I have.
Shortly after the speech by Pope Urban, the first assaults take place in France. The call for help from French fellow believers reaches Rabbi Kalonimos ben Mushalem in Mainz. The Crusaders, he reads, are said to have murdered dozens of Jews. Kalonimos beseeches his community to protect themselves, but most don't take his warning seriously. Their message to France: we will fast and help you in every way, but we have nothing to fear.
Wow.
They are convinced that the Bishop of Mainz wants to protect them, but Kalonimos is doubtful. He hopes for God's support. His fears are justified. The Crusaders come from France to the Rhineland, and soon the armed mob is standing at the gates of the Shum cities. What happened next is described in the writings of the so-called Anonymous of Mainz and the Jewish chronicler Salomo Bar Simson. Outside the gates of Mainz, the French Crusaders joined forces with Germans eager to fight. Itinerant preachers incite the angry crowd. They speak of Jewish god-murderers and vow the forgiveness of all sins. Mainz is home to over 1,000 Jews. Kalonimos sends a messenger with gold to the Crusaders. They promise clemency, but for how long? They want to set an example against the infidel in their midst. Kalonimos at home with his family. They still hope against hope that the gold will change the mind of the mob. He writes a letter to the German Emperor, Henry IV, to appeal for help, but to no avail. Kalonimos and his family can only wait. Just hours later, the self-proclaimed Crusaders attack Mainz. Christian citizens had opened the city gates to them. Jews are slain in their homes. Many seek protection in the bishop's palace, but the bishop has already fled. Kalonimos and other Jews arm themselves, but they're powerless against the numerically superior attackers. Death or baptism is their battle cry.
Interesting
Kalonymos
battle
returns
cry.
home in the certainty that he won't be able to save his family. A
It was a battle
contemporary
cry again.
witness
Sorry,
wrote,
I was doing that. I was not texting someone.
Death or baptism was their battle cry. I said that
Oh.
was an interesting battle cry.
Wait, whose?
The
That
Crusaders. The
Oh, okay,
Crusaders. And it's one of those, I think it's worth noting that I think all you have to say here is there was something seriously wrong with the Crusaders, because they didn't just go after the Jews. The Crusaders also sacked Byzantium. They sacked Constantinople. You know, they sacked the Christian city too. There's just a bunch of thugs.
Well, what do you think happens when you tell people, let's go pillaging, and whatever you do, you're going to be protected by God?
I suppose that you're right. That does release a certain amount of inhibitions in some of the violent people. Yep.
Yeah, it's basically like Westworld, but for Crusaders.
Well, I was sort of thinking like a football team too.
Ah, that's fair.
You know, go out and you get to hit the other people, and we'll pay you millions and millions of dollars to do so. But just make sure you only do it on the field. Don't do it, and you're surprised when they do it elsewhere.
superior attackers. Death or baptism is their battle cry. Kalonymos returns home in the certainty that he won't be able to save his family. A contemporary witness wrote, "But when the Jews saw how the Christians turned against their children and showed no mercy to people of any age, they aimed their arms against themselves and against their own fellow believers, against their own women and children, mothers and sister, and began killing each other." The Jews call this suicide the Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name. It was the only way to preserve their faith. This heroic glorification of the Kiddush Hashem can be found in medieval paintings. In the north of England, an accusation begins to circle that gives rise to a new form of hatred of Jews in Europe. Shortly before Easter, a boy named William goes missing in Norwich. The inhabitants look for him in the forest that borders the town. They make a gruesome discovery. William has been murdered.
Don't anyone look at the priest. The priest couldn't have done it. It totally wasn't the priest.
Search for the guilty party
Ariel,
is over in no time.
Ariel, let's be fair here. What sort of history is there of priests and little boys here that would possibly have any bearing here? Tag out.
I mean, I don't know, but I was more so thinking about the fact that, you do something that's, not too good, and then you need someone to blame, and then who do you blame? You blame the Jews. I mean, and let's just say, again, some popes have been, not absolutely horrible to Jews back in this point, but the common folk and the priests, they basically can choose whatever they want to do, whereas with the Pope has more vested interest because of the fact that I don't know if it was at this point yet, but basically because of the fact that Jews were essential for trade networks. And so he was viewing it more as an economist, whereas you have the priest viewing it more as theologians who happen to hate Jews.
Well, what you're talking about there is basically the local versus global approach, where the Pope has to coordinate amongst many people, and the priests and all, they only have to focus in the community. The Pope has to balance all the communities. It's just a difference of Pope is management. The tagging out.
The rumor arises that the Jews are to blame. Domestic staff from the house of a rich Jew are willing to testify to everything.
Oh, how convenient.
At first, the church and public officials react negatively towards the suggestion, and staff from the house of a rich Jew are willing to testify to everything. At first, the church and public officials react negatively towards the suggestion and discourage assaults on the Jewish population. The case is closed. Then, a few years later, the Benedictine monk Thomas of Monmouth arrives in Norwich. In a 7-volume work titled On the Life and Suffering of the Holy Martyr William of Norwich, He accuses the Jews of being responsible for his murder. They had killed William for ritual reasons in the Holy Week before Easter. Even if the church never canonized him officially, his grave in Norwich Cathedral was a place of pilgrimage for centuries. Soon, similar accusations follow everywhere in Europe. As soon as a child goes missing, the Jews are suspected. They are accused of using the children's blood for their unleavened bread at Passover.
I miss that recipe growing up in a Jewish community, Ariel.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. I do have to admit, matzah, it's not that tasty, but
It's tasty for a little bit, and then you get sick of it. Oh wow, this actually looks very similar to Crusader Kings.
A century ago, a conflict arose which would quickly become one of the most complex and controversial in the world. A conflict between two very different people for the same territory. To understand its origins, let's retrace the history of the Jewish people on a map. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict will be explained in a following video. The story begins in 750 BC when the Near East was divided into many small kingdoms and city-states.
So what was he implying?
They were wedged between the Assyrian Empire to the north and
what, Ariel?
What was he implying? Because 100 years ago, that would have been. Wait, when was
He
this
said
made?
he said 1,000 years ago.
Wait, he did?
Yeah, so he was originally he's gonna deal with the same sort of thing that the previous video did. With that
No.
that
Look.
a century ago.
So he's
a century ago.
Yeah. So okay. So he's saying. I guess he's let's see. This was made 4 years ago, which would be 2019. So he's probably referring to the Balfour Declaration, which really did screw things up. I mean, like anyone who thinks that there wouldn't have been, like a Jewish state established if it wasn't for the Balfour Declaration is kidding themselves. I mean, I
was going to say I appreciate you saying that because there's so much flawed with the whole situation around the Balfour document. Another problem there that you can point to is how horribly the Middle East and the Ottoman Empire got carved up by the British afterwards, especially Churchill involved.
Yeah. Well, and even before with the Sykes-Picot Agreement between the British and the French, they basically were you the one who mentioned about putting borders in rivers?
No, that wasn't me, but I understand at least some of the concept. Go on about it.
Yeah, basically just the way they set it up, they made it where people are fighting over natural resources. I mean, like, I don't think they were that smart unless you buy into the whole John Dee magic shit. I don't know, maybe some of it was subconscious, but at the end of the day, just the way that the way that the Middle East was divided, and also Asia and Africa, it was in such a way that it basically, I mean, it didn't maximize, but it increased, and not maximize, but severely increased the amount of conflict. And you could argue that it's due to the way that the borders were drawn. Now, the question is whether it was because of idiocy or some sort of, intention. I think it's more likely idiocy, but that doesn't mean that there isn't this like subconscious, like basically the fact that you are deciding to divide up land means that you're basing it off of a perception as opposed to how things normal or traditionally developed, which is why in Europe the borders are much more natural than in all these other post-colonial nations.
Well, one aspect that you have there is the borders the borders are natural at a given point in time. Wars change that sort of thing over time where, again, that's the big problem with Israel is one of the things that again, you got to recognize that say, my ancestor stole it from your ancestor, who stole it from my ancestor, who stole it from your ancestor, who stole it from the other guy, who stole it from there, who stole it from my ancestor, stole it from yours. It's been so many times, it's hard to say who would have any sort of ancient claim. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious because both groups have the same ancestors.
Well, I'm also talking like the Romans came in and it's how do you go with America? It's a it's a lot of.
Yeah, but my point is the Palestinians and Israelis, or rather Palestinians and Jews, have the same, not the same, but have similar ethnic profiles because of the fact that most Palestinians are descended from people who at one point converted to Islam from Judaism or Christianity, and the Christians originally from Judaism.
I was going to say some of them went to from paganism to those as well.
Well,
not
yeah,
necessarily through Judaism.
Yeah, but if you go far back enough in Judaism, you get what resembles paganism. But again, I think it kind of is like, what even is paganism in that case?
No, absolutely. No, it's what paganism, all of those concepts are, they're worth studying.
Yeah. Anyway.
Go on.
A conflict arose which would quickly become one of the most complex and controversial in the world. A conflict between two very different people for the same territory. To understand its origins, let's retrace the history of the Jewish people on a map. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict will be explained in a following video. The story begins in 750 BC when the Near East was divided into many small kingdoms and city-states. They were wedged between the Assyrian Empire to the north and Egypt in the south. Among them was the Kingdom of Israel, whose people worshipped several gods, including Yahweh. In 722 BC, the capital Samaria fell to the Assyrian Empire. Part of the population then fled to the Kingdom of Judah and Jerusalem. But in 722 BC, the capital Samaria fell to the Assyrian Empire. Part of the population then fled to the Kingdom of Judah and Jerusalem, but they would be followed by the Assyrian army as they continue their expansion towards the south. The region then remains under their control for a century until the fall of Nineveh to the Babylonians. Egypt and Babylon would then compete for territories of the old empire, but the Babylonians quickly take over and project their power in the region. Jerusalem resists this new rule and rebels. The Babylonian army then returns to besiege and destroy the city. Much of the population is then moved to the capital. In 539 BC, the Achaemenid Persian Empire takes over Babylon. The new king authorizes a free...
I get problems on videos like this when they say stuff that I know is not true. Like most of the population got taken to Babylon. What happened was most of the aristocracy got taken to Babylon.
Yeah.
Most of the general, and it's one of those where when you start sewing in that misinformation at this level, you're building, to me, a house of cards that doesn't work well for me. Just explaining to you where I have some issues with stuff like this.
No, I agree, but I also think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of people have that perception because of the Bible itself.
Oh, no, I agree, but to me, that's what you shouldn't be repeating the misinformation in this sort of stuff. You need to be calling it out and correcting it. That's sort of my approach.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just important to keep in mind, like, for instance, I don't know what background this guy has, but I mean, I don't want to assume, but, let's say maybe he's Muslim. Maybe he's looking at this from Islamic tradition, because that, in certain cases, if you are religious, that could supersede, like historiography.
And, my stance on that one is...
Oh, yeah. My stance on it as well.
Yeah, what happened takes precedence over what I believe. And it takes precedence for me over what other people believe. And if they want to go with what they believe over what happened, we're just going to have to disagree and go from there.
Yeah.
Free passage for Judeans, prompting many to return to Jerusalem. They would then rebuild the city and organize the foundations of Jewish culture by building the Temple of Solomon and writing the Torah.
Well, that's laughable. he said they built the Temple of Solomon. They rebuilt the temple, but it wasn't the Temple of Solomon. It was the Temple of what would that be? Nehemiah.
Culture by building the Temple of Solomon and writing the Torah.
I have a feeling there must
And
be
writing the Torah then too, Ariel.
Oh no, but that's actually accurate.
Well, I thought Moses wrote it.
So yeah, that's interesting. So he's not looking at he's looking at this historiographically, but he got the other part wrong. That's interesting. But no, I mean historiographically there is evidence that again, it's not saying that they didn't exist before then, but it was at least revealed to Ezra after he drank from the cup of fire, which is thought to be Heoma. But basically, he was reciting these stories that could have been already oral tradition. I'm not saying that's not the case, but when the Torah was actually written down was during Ezra and the return to Israel.
I actually do know that part of it was the joke about Moses writing it and just how, again, this is a little fast and loose, but we'll comment on it as we go.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, if it wasn't like this and it was all true, then what would we have to comment on?
We commented about how great the video was.
Yeah, but it's like we just be, it's like just a little bit of lip service at that point. Wait, that's interesting. They're saying the temple was on Cyprus and that the Torah was in Baalbek. I'm completely joking. I know that's just graphics. Oh, wait, and what's this? The Kaaba in Jerusalem and a floating Star of David over Nazareth. It's the Star of Jesus.
They were subconsciously implying.
Wait, so are they saying there's two Kaabas then? One in Susa and one in Jerusalem? I'm completely joking.
In 334 BC, the ambitious young Macedonian king Alexander the Great set out with his army to conquer the known world. In just over 10 years, he rakes up a huge territory and builds many cities. But exhausted by conquest, he died at age 32 in Babylon.
What? Wasn't he poisoned?
Nobody's exactly sure exactly what happened, but dying from exhaustion from conquest was not the reason. The best fit that I have is, my best working theory is that Ptolemy did him in and took over.
I might have an alternate theory.
Oh, there are lots of alternative theories. I'm not, it's sort of like who wrote Shakespeare's plays. It's all sorts of, I don't have a solid conclusive one. It's just, that's my current working theory. Ptolemy was certainly involved. You got anybody that close to Alexander doing him in would have had to at least have some contact with Ptolemy.
I told them, hey,
wait, where is it? Here.
What's one body part that's appealing to you on a muscular woman?
thighs. Thigh-ideology, my man. Yeah. Death by snoo-snoo.
What's
I think that's how he died. Death by snoo-snoo. Do you get the reference?
No.
Well, I'd play it, but I don't want to get struck. But it's from Futurama.
Okay.
Basically, the joke is that they get captured by these like Amazons. The men in the party get captured, and they're basically being chained up in this cave. And the joke is that there's a bunch of these chained up skeletons with crushed pelvises.
Yeah, no. Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, he did do a lot of snoo-snoo in his conquering, especially with, who is it, Roxana?
Well, that's how he was the only person who ever actually conquered Afghanistan. He did it the old-fashioned way. He laid siege to the city and married the daughter of the king in order to end the siege.
Interesting.
Without an heir of governing age. The empire was then divided by his generals into various Hellenic kingdoms. Judea came under the control of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A Jewish community settles in the new city of Alexandria, and the Torah is translated into Greek. Following a war against the Seleucid dynasty, Hellenic and Jewish culture developed friction to the point that one of the altars of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem was dedicated to the worship of Zeus. A traditionalist
Wait, what?
was dedicated to the point that one of the altars of the Temple of Solomon
Oh wait, yeah. That's during like the period of the Maccabean revolt.
in Jerusalem
Only it's
was
not actually the
dedicated to
Temple of Solomon.
Well,
It's
yeah.
still not. He's still
Well,
insisting on calling it the Temple of Solomon.
The funny thing is, there probably was an altar to Zeus in a certain way in the Temple of Solomon. Just it would have been to Baal.
I was going to say what I remember the huge uproar that blew everything up was them building the gymnasium. You know, in the temple area.
Dang it. Well, I would show. Actually, it's probably good that I can't show those because I don't want to get struck. But no, have you ever? Vice did a documentary on basically on penises, and one part that they had was the. Have you ever heard of the? I think they're called the blood-stained men.
I haven't heard that term before, but go on. I know that I know that Jewish people did stuff in order to blend in.
Yeah, so basically, there's this one organization. It's a bunch of people who they feel very strongly about the fact that they were circumcised as babies. I mean, maybe there's some Jews in there, but I get the indication that's primarily just Americans and Christians, because there's going to be a stigma about saying that if it's part of your religious tradition. But anyway, the whole point though was the founder of these bloodstained men. He sells these like basically epispasm kits, which is in order to quote unquote grow foreskin. And I don't want to get into the details. It's really fucking oof.
No. Don't go into those details. I don't want to picture those. No. I don't want anybody else to.
Good morning, Mateus. How are you doing? Let's see. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, gymnasia. The reason why you wouldn't want it at the end of the day, it's just like. Oh, actually, wait. Let me see.
No, that was what I remember. The big controversy of was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. Was building such a Hellenic thing that close to the temple, because it was the sign that it had just gone too far.
Let's see. Oh wait, here. So.
Yeah, we watched this one.
Wait, we did see this one?
Yeah, we watched that one yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'll just bring up the one here.
אני מעדיף שלא.
סליחה?
לא רוצה, מה תעשו לי?
מה זה לא רוצה? זה אלוהים אמר.
לא מאמין באלוהים.
יואו! אבל כולם עשו. ואתה באמת רוצה אחר כך שיצחקו עליך במקלחת? לא.
So the funny thing is, it would have been the opposite in Hellenic time.
יאללה, אבל קצץ.
Exactly.
ועכשיו, לכבוש את כנען! קדימה! ברעל! כנען!
וימול את בני ישראל אל גבעת האורלו.
ממתי יש פה גבעה?
Do you get it? I didn't remember there's a hill over there. That the hill was like made up of foreskins.
Funny, yeah.
the worship of Zeus. The traditionalist anti-Hellenic Jewish militia is organized and takes control of Jerusalem in 164 BC. The temple is restored and the kingdom of Judea becomes independent. A century later, the region was conquered by the Roman army. The Judeans would organize two major revolts against the new regime, which were violently crushed. The first revolt in 66 provoked the siege of Jerusalem, followed by the destruction of its temple. The only wall of the enclosure that survived would become known as the Wailing Wall. During the Second Revolt, the city was razed and a great part of the population slaughtered. This time, the Jews were forbidden a safe passage to Judea. Many migrate to Galilee and across the empire. Towards the end of the Roman Empire, Christianity was the dominant religion and Jerusalem a place of pilgrimage. The largely well-to-do Jewish community in the Mediterranean basin began to be persecuted, especially in the Visigoth and Byzantine empires. In the 7th century, following the birth of Islam, begins an Arab conquest. In some cases, Jews support the conquest in the hope of better conditions. They are tolerated by the Arabs and only polytheistic peoples are forcibly converted.
Such a shame. I mean, like, at the end of the day, I don't understand why, why isn't it enough that, I mean, it's, it's tricky, but, like, and I believe this with, Judaism and then Christianity as well.
Get out the question. Get out the full question, Ariel. I'm not sure exactly what your question is.
Basically, like, if you, like, why do you need to, forcibly convert, basically tell people, convert, or, also the thing is with Jews and Christians, they were able to convert or become dhimmis, where they basically had to pay a tax. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the tax wasn't really that different than what Muslims had to pay. It was just paid communally as opposed to, like, people would pay it individually in the Muslim world. But no, like, when it came to pagans, they told them convert or die. I mean, it's the same with the Christians and the Muslims. Jews never really did that except for, like, during the Hasmonean period, but that's, like, even the rabbis hated the Hasmoneans, so it's like no one likes the Hasmoneans. But, like,
I was gonna say, if nobody likes the Hasmoneans, why is Judah the Hammer such a hero?
Oh, no. People like the Maccabees. They don't like the Hasmoneans.
Oh, okay. My bad. I was conflating them for a second.
Yeah, it's kind of like you have, like, this really awesome person, and then they have a really shitty grandson.
Gotcha. No, you can understand where it was a slight, from a distance they blur together at times.
Yeah.
In Jerusalem, the Dome of the Rock is built, making the city holy to the 3 monotheistic religions. The Arabs arrive at the Iberian Peninsula.
Excuse me? It was holy before it was built, you genius. I'm not going to insult him.
Well, it's also are there only 3 monotheistic religions? I mean, there's 3 major Abrahamic monotheistic religions, that's for certain.
Yeah, he's probably using monotheistic as an Abrahamic, but even then, you still have. Actually, wait, I'm trying to think. What time?
Well, Hinduism can be interpreted as monotheistic,
but not Abrahamic.
Right.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if there was another Abrahamic tradition. You could argue Druze, but I don't know if they were around yet.
And then who knows exactly what Druze believe, since also Zoroastrianism.
Not Abrahamic.
I know. I was. Oh, you're right.
Which they call Al-Andalus. Here, 5% of the population is Jewish, ushering in a golden age of culture. Meanwhile, in Europe, Jews are not only tolerated as people who witnessed times before Christ, but also as the sole traders between Catholics and Muslims. This allows Jews to gradually establish themselves in all of Western Europe.
I do want to point out here, Ariel.
In the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks.
There's a point to be made there, and this is one of the things that gets overlooked, is that trade between Christians and Muslims, one of the most profitable aspects of that trade was the slave trade. And it pretty much, because of religious reasons, Christians basically they couldn't enslave other Christians, but they could have Muslims as slaves. And Muslims couldn't have other Muslims as slaves, but they could have Christians and pagans as slaves. And there were some Jewish, again, I consider them fairly unscrupulous and kind of evil traders that basically used their position as Jew, as a Jew in order to make a lot of money on the slave trade. And you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, but they were generally very they basically are you talking about the Radonites?
Well, not just the Radonites are I have a much more respect for. I'm specifically talking about those slave traders during this period, and the majority of slave traders during this period were Jewish. The majority, the number of Jews that were slave traders was vanishingly small. But the ones that, it's like the slave traders, they were because of their position religiously enabled them to handle slaves of both Muslim and Christian. They could have both and then sell it to the appropriate buyer for huge profits.
What about the pagans though? Because I know that the Rus, didn't they took slaves and sold them, didn't they?
They regularly had raids into Rus areas, into the pagan areas, in order to grab slaves.
No,
because
I'm
okay.
saying the Rus or the Vikings themselves.
Oh yeah, no, that they also they basically were that they sold some, but they basically sold to the traders, the slave traders who would take them out of the territory. It's much like the in Africa later on during the 1600s, where you had blacks in Africa who would take slaves and then sell them to the Europeans in order to take to America. So, it wasn't all just white people coming in there. You had a ready supplier for sitting in Africa as well.
But yeah, there were Jews that were involved, but I also think that it's you can't just look at that solely though, because they weren't the only ones trading between different. At the end of the day, you could still have Arabs trading with Christians. It just typically wasn't done.
Well, it was against the rules that were set up there. It was nothing illegal or immoral for a Jew to basically have a Muslim slave and sell it to a Christian, or to have a Christian slave and sell it to a Muslim. That was perfectly fine. For a Christian or Muslim to trade a slave like that one would be against the religion and against the law. And that's what I'm pointing out there. And I'm not trying to say all of them. I'm trying to say it's worth looking into to see just what the actual facts are underlying there, what actually happened. Because I'm just sharing with you my way of looking at things, and what I found is that, again, the majority of those people who were involved with the slave trade happened to be Jewish. Again, on the other side, the 99% of the Jews of the time period had nothing to do with the slave trade and didn't deserve the bad rap those slave traders gave them. You see what I'm saying there, Ariel?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
My point is, you still have here. Look at this. So the slave trade in the Sahara in antiquity may have been small and rare, as Saharan trade didn't reach large dimensions until the Arabs and Berbers introduced large numbers of camels into the desert. Look at this. Paul Lovejoy estimates that around 6 million black slaves were transported across the Sahara between the years 650 AD and 1500 AD. So, my point is, obviously, I'm not denying, what you just said.
Well, what they were doing there is they were taking pagans. Those were black pagans they were taking. Those weren't black Arabs they were enslaving.
No, I know that's but yeah, but this was still my point is,
my specific area of focus, Ariel, was the slave trade between the Muslim countries and the Christian countries.
Yeah, but again, you do have Christian countries up in Europe and this is going all the way up to like Algeria. You even have the potential for trade with Spain. So like my point is that while Jews might have been the middlemen, they weren't the ones enslaving people. It doesn't make them any less complicit, the people who were, but the point is like you generally don't like Jews are selling people like other, well, specifically the traders who are doing this are selling people like merchandise, but like in this case they're not generally going to be producing, or in this case capturing people, like real people, and enslaving them. And again, I don't think it makes it any better, but
Oh, no. You bring up a good point, and that's exactly one. They're not the producers of the product. They're just the traders of the product. We're on the same page there.
Yeah, but like my point is that no one in the ancient world is free, is innocent of slavery and of the slave trade. That's all I was trying to bring up.
Well, I'm willing to sit there and say the majority of the population was pretty innocent. Most people never ever owned a slave.
Well, yeah, you know what I meant. Like no part of the world.
Yeah, no. What I'm trying to highlight is there is a 1% evil minority that's basically causing a problem here. And they're making a bad name for anybody who's associated with them. I think that's a point that needs to be made, and that's true in every group pretty much throughout history.
Yeah.
Can we at least agree on that point?
Definitely, yeah.
Asian people began their expansion and reached Jerusalem.
What is the real story of January 6th? Many people have asked that question.
They persecute Christians and forbid pilgrimages to the city. In response, Christians in Europe organized crusades, military and religious expeditions to the Holy City. Along the way, they massacred Jewish communities who they now consider a deicide people who killed Jesus Christ. In 1347, Genoese merchant boats from Kaffa helped spread the Black Death. In 5 years, the disease wreaks havoc in Europe, killing almost half its population. A rumor spreads accusing Jews of poisoning whales, resulting in their persecution mainly along the Rhine and Rhone region and their eventual expulsion. In Spain, the Reconquista ends. The Catholic kings serve an ultimatum to the Jews to either
I've literally like a few months ago, I was hanging out with a friend, and one of his friends was hanging out with him, and so I just kind of met him. But at one point, we're smoking a joint, and he just happens to mention in passing something about like that he thinks that Jews poisoned wells during the Black Death, and I just I did not know how to respond to that. I mean, I told him that it wasn't true and that, it's, but like at the end of the day, it's like when you actually encounter someone who believes that, it's just, it's like, it's another thing versus like someone who says like, what's this about, that they're genuinely trying to learn. But I mean, that wasn't the only thing that he said, but it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's so bizarre that people would actually think that, because first of all, I guess the non-rational mind can do very strange things. But
well, now you're talking. I was going to say what's worth exploring here a little bit is the difference between belief and thinking. And it's like belief, you don't need facts. You just adopt it, and the facts can be against it. You can still believe it, and that's where truth and thinking. If you try to harness your beliefs and you stick it to what might be true, then you got at least a buffer on it. But if you don't, you can believe any sort of ridiculous thing. Definitely. And one of the things that I sit there and say is, I don't know what happened. There was a lot of stuff that happened 1,000 years ago. At least once, there might have been some Jew somewhere that poisoned some well. I can't say that never happened. Do I think it happened like, this, oh my God, there's a plague of Jews doing it? It's too often I've seen that hysteria pass across things. And usually that hysteria is ginned up off of a misinterpretation of something. So while, I'm signing off on it's a ridiculous thing to sit there and say, but we can't know for certain that no incidences ever happened.
Well, yeah, but that's also like saying we can't know that God's not a flying spaghetti monster.
He's not?
We can't know.
That's true. We can believe.
But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, like you can't disprove something that isn't like basically you can only prove something. You can't disprove something that isn't true. In other words, because
that's where I go with demonstration. You tend to demonstrate stuff. Either it can happen or it didn't happen or things like that. It's I hate the use of the word proof, especially when it comes to history. It so rarely applies.
Also, I'm sorry, but is it just me or does Portugal look like Hitler with a mustache in this?
No, I definitely see that. I was going to say, to a certain extent, it's Hitler sort of with a, he's got kind of a long hair in the back that, if you look at Spain, is his hair.
Yeah. Maybe it's his bloody head.
Yeah, that's a thought with with what is it, Valladolid as the bullet hole through it.
Leave. The majority who choose to leave settle along the Mediterranean coast, mainly in the Ottoman Empire, where they are welcomed. The Poland-Lithuania Commonwealth becomes a haven for Jews from Western Europe due to favorable migration policies. In the 17th century, the region hosts more than 300,000, or about half of the Jews in the world. But everything changed in 1648 with the revolt of the Cossacks' Ukrainian presence against the nobility and the Jews. They accused the Jews of having a privileged relationship with those in power. More than 100,000 Jewish people are killed or flee the region. This episode would weaken the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, besieged on all sides by neighboring powers. In 150 years, the regime falls and its territory is carved up. The Jewish community is divided, and 900,000 of them find themselves in the Russian Empire, where they are not welcome. They quickly become the targets of attacks called pogroms, a Russian term meaning devastation. Given the lack of response from authorities, these attacks become more...
Literally, the Cossack Rebellion was a giant pogrom. Pogroms weren't, it wasn't when they fell under the Russian Empire. It was just like the Rus, or descendants of the Rus, that were largely responsible for... Actually, no, it was all Europeans. And I mean, arguably, the term is like Slavic in origin, but pogroms did even happen in Arabia against Jews. So, like, it happened everywhere.
I was going to say, and the other one is, Ariel, is it the thing about the Jews had close ties with the government. They tended to be wealthy. They tended to be merchants. The government is going to naturally have connections with those types of people. That's a true allegation, but that's a feature, not a bug here, people. That's not something to get violent over and kill them.
Graham, I think you need to clarify because it wasn't clear. You're talking about the Jews who happen to be rich.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I know you were talking about that. It's just it wasn't clear for anyone who's watching. Yeah,
no, I'm just saying is you're always going to have rich people who are involved with the government, and you get jealousy, and that's, again, I'm just saying while they're using a truth, they're weaponizing that truth and using it to harm people.
Yeah.
Let's finish.
Frequent and deadly. The Jews then emigrate to the United States and Western Europe, which in the meantime has improved their living conditions. It is in this context that the first Zionist Congress is held in Basel in 1897, contemplating the founding of a new homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. But the Ottoman Empire is fiercely opposed to the project. A few years later, the First World War breaks out. The Ottoman Empire fought alongside Germany. When the Allies were in trouble and desperately sought further support, the then British Minister of Foreign Affairs, Arthur Balfour, wrote an open letter promising a Jewish homeland in Palestine in return for Jewish support. In parallel, they support the Arab rebellion against the Ottoman Empire by promising them independence in the liberated territories. At the end of the war, the map of the Middle East was redrawn and divided up between the European powers. Palestine comes under the British mandate, marking the beginning of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
So here I'm just.
I did have a quick question. It was based off of the previous video. Where did the Jews in Germany come from?
They came from Rome primarily.
From Rome, Italy? The ones that okay.
From Italy.
So those, are you saying those weren't Rodenites then? Because that was a period that the Rodenites were around.
No, because the Rodenites didn't settle. They were mobile.
Well, they had encampments. Or okay, you're not counting the Rodenites in the cities where they traded to as Rodenites.
Well, they were Radonites, but like they were stationary Radonites.
Yeah, and that's where I was wondering from is, you tended to have the Jewish trading enclave in each city that the Rodenites would go back and forth from. And that's where I was wondering, just where that population came from, because it's a question of where did the Ashkenazi where did they come from? Because a lot of it is that they didn't really say there, and that was the time period when you had all the big conflict further east, and you had that's where people were relocating, because of the conflicts between the Eastern Empire and the early rise of Islam, and you had a lot of people from the again, a lot of the Ukraine area and things like that were basically getting away from the direct conflict and moving west. And I just didn't know exactly where they just sort of, it seemed like they popped up in Germany that way. And I was just kind of curious if you had, more details.
Let's
Welcome to another edition of Would You Guess? Now, advances in genetics have allowed Jewish communities from all corners of the globe to uncover tremendous insights into their ancestry. Why? Well, until about the 20th century, due to both internal pressure and external restrictions, Jews married outside of the faith at about only 0.5% per generation. As a result, Jews became genetically isolated, making genetic analysis of the Jewish people that much easier. So here is what we know. Genetic researchers have found that all Jews, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Mizrahi, whatever, descend from a founding community that lived 2,500 years ago in Mesopotamia or modern-day Iraq. Around that time, the population split into two, with half moving into Europe and North Africa, and the other half remaining in the Middle East, which historically does correspond with the expulsion of the Jews in 587 BC by Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar after the destruction of the First Temple. Okay, so let's focus on Jews who wound up in Central and Eastern Europe in the last millennium, known as the Ashkenazi, who are now...
Are they saying the Ashkenazi went to Europe in 600 BC? In the 500s BC?
No, that's when he's saying that's when the Israelites and basically when the Judeans and Israelites were exiled to Babylon.
Yeah, I know where they split into that one, and that's okay. I'm just trying to I'm trying to figure out the sequencing here because it's. Go on.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so it's about 500, 600 years in between Babylon and when you start to have Actually, no, maybe about 400 years is when you really start to have. It's actually thought that the Jewish community in Spain might be might have existed during the time of the First Temple.
Oh, okay. No, you definitely. Again, it's one of those where you have trading communities going there. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was just trying to place this whole movement at from the fall of Solomon's temple to Europe, and it's like that was a new one on me.
Yeah.
About 80% of all Jews living today for 10 million people around the globe. Now, the genetic studies tell us that this original Ashkenazi population lived in the medieval era about 600 to 800 years ago. They were half European and half Middle Eastern. And would you guess that that original founding population totaled a mere 330 people? Yep, every single one of the 10 million Ashkenazi living today descend from 330 people who lived between the 14th and 16th centuries.
Here, I would
And
like to
given
see
how
their actual
acute-
genetic tests, because are they talking 300 males? Are they going, you have three different types of DNA that you can test for. Basically the Y chromosome, the male, the female line with the mitochondrial DNA, and then the rest of it, the 99% of the genetics. And a lot of them will pick one and run with that one, and you'll end up with some false conclusions.
But no, this study, like it's really well done. We could talk about it another time, but this isn't even what I was talking about, because this is a result of the extreme persecution and the genocide. But I'm talking about earlier, because they're saying only 600, 700 years ago. I'm talking about 1400 years ago. But
The genetic similarities.
No, they were talking the same
of
time
genetic-
period. They were talking the same time period.
no, they're not. They're talking about here, listen.
I thought they said it was like 600 AD.
10 million Ashkenazi
No.
living today descend from 330 people who lived between the 14th and 16th centuries.
Oh, you're right. No, that's not
And
right.
given how acute the genetic similarities are, 21st century Ashkenazi, geneticists have determined that all 21st century Ashkenazim are literally mishpucha, which means family in Yiddish, being at least 30th cousins. Well, that's all for this edition of What You...
So not quite what I was looking for, but
And he definitely are overstating with all, because as you've noted, it's tough to say all at that point because of conversions in and all.
yeah, but at a certain point, their children. I mean, like, basically, in order to be Ashkenazi, like, you can marry into an Ashkenazi family, but that doesn't technically make you Ashkenazi. Like, you're part of that tradition, but like in terms of, you don't suddenly genetically become Ashkenazi, but your child would be, even if you're not, as long as you marry someone who is. So eventually, it doesn't matter about people who convert. And again, like, the idea of genetics really doesn't even matter in Jewish law. But let me see if
I think we're down a rabbit hole here, so let's try to focus going back to the game and the that world rather than the genetics. And we're looking at what happened with the Jews back in that time period.
Well, no, but it is. Wait, let me see.
Oh, no, I was just suggesting. Suggesting.
Let's see.
I noticed we were kind of off our previous path.
Let's see here. Okay, well, this is one second.
Found in the northeast corner of Italy, on the shores of the Adriatic Sea, lies Venice, the Serenissima.
And so this is the thing you have to take into context. Where's Germany? Literally just north. So, yeah, I mean, you have...
Well, just north, but those Alps are kind of tough to get over.
Yeah, but they were having to migrate it for trade anyway. But beyond that, you also have you have the Jews in Spain that end up in France, and also the Jews that end up in France, like in England. The Jews that end up in England, although they end up getting considered Ashkenazi later, they were actually immigrants from Spain, and so in particular, there before there was Ashkenazi Jews, there were basically Roman Jews, and there were I guess you could argue, well, but see, the thing, all Jews were Roman Jews that lived in the Roman Empire, but so at a certain point, we're really talking about Italian Jews because there were a lot of Jews living in the vicinity of Rome. And so eventually, once they get persecuted, they end up kind of dispersing around throughout Italy. And furthermore, when the papal states start out, they really start persecuting. So a lot of Jews end up leaving Italy and going north and going east.
No, I understand that one. Where I sit here, and I'm certainly saying that happened. It's the ones that haven't been mentioned, where they're coming from the east of basically like the Caspian Sea area, the Black Sea, the Crimea, that sort of area, the whole Khazar thing, as basically, as the Khazar Empire fell in the 900s, you would certainly see people leaving to go west. There's a lot of thought of, some of the founding of Kiev would have been, is thought to have come from that one. And you certainly had pressure when you had the various steppe invasions, especially when you had the Mongols coming through, basically forcing them into the west. And I definitely see that some of the people who ended up in Germany had to have come from that area. You know what I mean, Ariel?
But that's the thing. Most of the Jews that lived in the Khazar Cognate were originally from Western Europe. They ended up in the East because they were persecuted in the West during the Crusades.
No, Khazar fell before the Crusades.
Oh wait, yeah, sorry,
No,
I misspoke. Not the Crusades, but still persecution from the church.
They actually weren't persecuted so much by the church. They switched to Judaism because after the rise of.
I'm not talking about the Khazars.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, because the only Khazars who converted to Judaism were the nobility. So yes, probably some small, but even then, a lot of them converted to Islam afterwards. But the Jews who didn't, because they had this ancestral connection, those were primarily the Jews who had immigrated to the Khazar Cognate from Western Europe because of persecution from, and again, not specific. In this case, I'm trying to think. This would have been persecution from the Byzantine Empire.
And here's my question, Ariel. You're sitting there, and I'm 100% agreeing. You would have had some movement from Europe. You have to remember, the Byzantine Empire had very little actual territory in Europe. Most of their territory was Middle Eastern. So if people are fleeing from Byzantine persecution, they're going to be fleeing much more from from Turkey, the further eastern, the Levant area, than you're going to be seeing, because the Byzantine Empire didn't have control over the Western Empire. Know what I'm saying?
I'm talking about What do you mean the Western Empire? I'm talking about the Byzantine Empire.
I know you're saying that they're coming from Western Europe. How much of Europe?
So you do have the Jews coming from Western Europe, and you have the Jews coming from the Byzantine Empire.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, I'm just saying I can't sign off on it's all just Jews in Western Europe went east, and then they came back west, and none of the ones from down in the Levant had anything to do with it.
That's not what I'm saying either. Like, I'm literally saying that that Jews from the Levant ended up in Italy. See, that's the thing. You can't think of these as Western European Jews because culturally they're not Western European yet.
And what I'm saying is, some of them went to Italy, some of them went to, Khazaria, some of them, when you get persecuted, you get spread. It's a diaspora. And it's, I'm just saying where you may not be thinking this, but your words are coming across basically focusing on it happened this one way and all of them kind of went that way. And I'm just trying to emphasize, I see it as they kind of spread all over the place, including the ones that you're talking about. Do you see what I'm the difference I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get that, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, the reason why you have this influx of Jews into Khazaria is because you do primarily have them coming from the Byzantine Empire and from the Western Roman Empire. Like, and yeah, you do have some people from the Levant, but much less of a need because, because the Levant was under the control of the Byzantines at this point.
That's what I'm saying is, you're going to have them fleeing the Byzantine Empire up there. So you're not just going to have Western Europe Jews coming in. You're going to have Jews from there.
I never said that. I said Byzantine and Western Roman Empire. Byzantine implied Levantine.
You were saying European Jews, and I'm sitting there, and to me, European.
No, you're asking where Western European Jews came from, and then you switch to talking about Khazaria.
Well, I was trying to figure out where the Germans in like the 800s came from that they were talking about with the three cities.
That's what I'm telling you. Almost exclusively Italy.
And that's where, I haven't done the research there. I need to go into that one. I see that.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to take my word for it, but like I have.
No, I'm trying to place it within my matrix of understanding. Is all I'm trying to do.
All right. Well, let's continue.
Weren't there Jews in Venice? Venice was founded like in the 700s. It's sort of like around the time of it really took off about the time Islam took over. What were the Jews doing for almost 1,000 years? Surely there were some living in Venice,
Oh, no, and see, this is the thing. What happens 1,000 years before they're allowed in? So the Venetian ghetto, wait, hold on. So the Venetian ghetto was the area of Venice in which Jews were forced to live by the government of the Venetian Republic. The English word ghetto is derived from the Jewish ghetto in Venice. The Venetian ghetto was instituted on the 29th of March, 1516 by decree of Doge Leonardo Loredan and the Venetian Senate. It was not the first time that Jews in Venice were compelled to live in a segregated area of the city. So it's just this specific, version of the ghetto that would be. But
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. The Jews have been persecuted in Venice off and on for years. Yeah. No, I was surprised that was going to be. It's like surely that wasn't the first time.
Yeah.
Along with his family and friends. During the Middle Ages, at the time of the Crusades, Catholic Venice welcomes the Jews of the diaspora. From the 11th century, Jews trade with Venetian merchants, but are not given permission to live in the city. All this changes in the spring of 1516. The government of Venice, under the leadership of Doge Leonardo Loredan, grants them permanent residence.
So this is interesting, but it's not really the time period we're interested in. Sorry,
No problem. The only thing I wanted to note there, it was the basic your money's welcome, but you're not.
Where do Ashkenazi Jews from? Here, I'll just fast forward.
Ads on YouTube must be so annoying. But with 3 clicks, you can install an ad blocker and you'll never see ads again.
We'll talk about an ironic ad.
Yeah, and
Go to
thank you
Adblocker
for not clicking on the fake Jews video. That's a term that I just hate.
Wait, what? Oh yeah. No, I think it's just clickbait.
Okay.
Hello, fellow students of.
But like it is that from Unpacked? Yeah, it's a good channel. It's just probably a clickbaity title.
Hello, fellow students of Jewish history. I'm really excited to share with you today the results of a study that I recently read that is absolutely fascinating, talking about the genetic history of early Ashkenazi Jews. I'm just beginning my research now to prepare for the cruising season with Kosher Riverboat Cruises. Looking forward to visiting the Netherlands and Belgium, and then a little later going to the Rhone River again to the south of France. So let's start with this new study, which is absolutely fascinating. Talks about the genetic history of early Ashkenazi Jews. So first of all, let's understand what are the regions we're speaking about. If you look at this map here, you see basically the settlement of Ashkenazi Jews begins in this northern central part of Europe, primarily Germany, the Rhineland, and these locations were where we begin to see Jews showing up from the 6th through the 11th century, especially around the 9th century, start getting much more concrete historical data. Then, of course, they'll spread towards the east in particular, eventually into the great heartland where they'll expand in Poland and Ukraine, and eventually making their way over to the Americas. But one of the enduring questions in Jewish history has been like, how exactly did the Ashkenazi Jews get there? And there are a few different models of migration. Here, have a look at this map, which takes advantage of new research eventually into the great heartland where they'll expand in Poland and Ukraine, and eventually making their way over to the Americas. But one of the enduring questions in Jewish history has been like, how exactly did the Ashkenazi Jews get there? And there are a few different models of migration. Here, have a look at this map, which takes advantage of new research available through DNA studies. And the model, which seems to be the most definitive, and in fact, the study that I'll look at with you today seems to confirm it, indicates that most Ashkenazi Jews, or at least a plurality of them, have their roots in the Middle East, of course, in the region of ancient Israel, with a strong admixture of Italian DNA, meaning that they migrated from the ancient site of Israel through the Italian peninsula before they made their way to the heartland of Ashkenaz in northern Europe. There's also a significant admixture of Sephardic Jewry. You see them coming from the Iberian Peninsula after perhaps a trek across North Africa, and then moving into Provence, the south of France, and then up into the Ashkenazic heartland. But the main trend of migration, which has historically been accepted based on literary evidence, like the Colonimus family settling there and so on, has always been through the Italian Peninsula. And some partial DNA results have indicated that there's support for that. DNA research is definitely the cutting edge of historical work, looking at these original populations. And one of the studies that we looked at a little while ago was the discovery of the remains of 17 people who were sadly thrown down a well in Norwich, England. Radio work looking at these original populations. And one of the studies that we looked at a little while ago was the discovery of the remains of 17 people who were sadly thrown down a well in Norwich, England. Radiocarbon dating of the remains suggested that they came from the 12th century, a period when there were great massacres of Jews connected to the Third Crusade. And in fact, when the DNA analysis was performed on these remains, it did confirm that these were Ashkenazic Jews, very well matched to contemporary Ashkenazic Jews. And as you can see from this image here, which comes from the Natural History Museum in England, they were able to actually reconstruct their faces. Amazing, based on the DNA evidence that they collected. They're also able to reconstruct some of their, complexion and eye color and things like that. They were also able to determine, for example, that one of the children had blue eyes and red hair, which was sort of a stereotypical way of depicting Jews in the 12th century as well. So it's just fascinating to see these kind of episodic bits of information. The problem, however, is that, in Jewish law, Jews are prohibited from simply digging up graves and then taking DNA samples. That's totally unacceptable. And in fact, in Israel, whenever there's some kind of construction going on and they find the remains of some ancient cemetery, they have to take all kinds of precautions. They can't immediately dive in and start, dissecting the remains of these ancient people who lived there. So there's always been a great difficulty in actually conducting this research. But I'm very grateful to my colleague, Dr. Ellie Dolgan, who is a science writer who shared with me this fascinating preprint study that's going to be appearing in a very prestigious journal soon. And it gave us the results of a new study that comes out of Erfurt, Germany. Let me show you that study and explain how it depicts in much greater detail the genetic history of early Ashkenazi Jews. So first of all, it's dealing with...
Any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I think it's good to note just how small of a sample space they're drawing from. 17 people, they're drawing the conclusion of millions upon millions.
Wait, what are you talking about?
He explained the DNA study about how it was based off, 17 people
No,
here.
that's not what he's saying. He's saying that no, they just you're
Ariel, before you just snap back with no, how many people were involved with the DNA study? What was their sample size? I can read those sorts of things, and it's like I understand how genetic DNA works.
Okay, Graham, what I'm trying to say is the genetic study is separate from what he's talking about with these 17 people in Norwich, England. These are two separate things.
He was talking about the DNA. Okay, he was talking about the DNA in Norwich. So
No, here, I'll go back.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's worth looking into just how small of a DNA sampling they're going from to draw their conclusions from. A lot of it, I understand the statistical math behind it. It's a lot like polling, where you can poll 1,000 people and you can get within 3% margin of error.
No, I get that, but if you look at this doesn't even look at England, not at all.
Oh, I agree. It's basic, but that doesn't mean that those weren't part of the skeletons involved there. What they were tracing them as part of the Ashkenazi heritage.
What I'm talking about, though, is you see how this references migration. It doesn't even the thing is, if this had any reference, if they used any data from a population that they found in England, they would reference that in the graph. But the thing is, they're not connected. I can.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't.
Okay, maybe they wouldn't, but my point is they're still not connected. He references these two things separately.
I understand. I was going to say here, what you need to understand that happens here, DNA tests, they just return raw facts.
No,
just let me speak here for a second. What you're seeing on the map here is people's recreation and extrapolation and interpretation of the facts. Those facts that they're drawing from, that DNA isn't going to ever change. As more DNA get revealed, it could easily change the chart we're seeing here because they're drawing from a bigger, better body of knowledge, and they have a clearer picture. That's happened countless times in the way things progress. That's what I wanted to note there. Tagging out.
All I'm trying to say is that these are two completely different references. They have nothing to do with one another. And the population size that they got for this is going to be much bigger than the 17. He just was referencing a recent find in England. That was literally it. There's no connection between this population data that he's talking about. Although obviously if you were to plug it in, you could probably get something interesting, but you'd have to look at it in scale of others. But the other thing that I think is important to look at is you can't be for sure for any of this, but at a certain point when you start to see an average of say however many skeletons you're testing, that a certain amount of them are having this percentage of DNA that matches with Italian populations, that's probably an indication that that person or their ancestors were in Italy at one point.
And I understand exactly what you're saying, and that's one of the reasons why I like to pay attention to, I think it's autosomal, which is the generic body, the Y, your Y haplogroup, and then your mtDNA, because those are three different ways of tracking DNA over time. And one of the differences is if you're using your mitochondrial DNA to track something like this, you're not going to see a conquering male population come in and basically a male replacement. You slaughter all the males, the new males come in, you're not going to see a lick of difference in the mitochondrial DNA, but a total change in the Y haplogroup. And this is why when people, what if I'm not looking at the actual studies, I don't know what DNA they're pulling from, and I can't be as confident in a map like this with their conclusions unless I've seen the nuts and bolts behind their study. Do you understand what I'm saying there? I'm only speaking for myself here, Ariel.
Yeah, it's just we're going to get stuck on this forever.
No, I just wanted to weigh my point, and as long as I can sit here and say that I'm not signing off on this, and I'm willing to go with what he's saying here for his study, and I not signing off that there might not be a better explanation. That's all.
Admixture of Sephardic Jews.
So I just want to point out though these are completely separate because I'm like for myself as well.
You see them coming from the Iberian Peninsula after perhaps a trek across North Africa, and then moving into Provence, the south of France, and then up into the Ashkenazic heartland. But the main trend of migration, which has historically been accepted based on literary evidence, like the Colonimus family settling there and so on, has always been through the Italian peninsula. And some partial DNA results have indicated that there's support for that. DNA research is definitely the cutting edge of historical work, looking at these original populations. And one of the studies that we looked at a little while ago was the discovery of the remains of 17 people who were
muted.
So yeah, I definitely see how it could get how it could get confusing, like how it could seem that they're connected, but this is like a separate study.
Yeah, you saw I was willing to sit there and say that it was a separate study, and you can see how I sit there. It just seemed to flow there. And again, it's worth pointing out that these studies are based off of very small data samples.
Well, I mean, this one is because the data sample is what is available, but in the cases of other ones, it's based on however large or small it is, and we don't know unless we know.
When they do the studies, they reveal exactly what their data sample are.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, unless you know that it's a small population, you don't know that it is until we know that.
I know how this sort of science goes. They can't, I would be surprised if they had more than 2,000 DNA samples that they processed as far as included in their study. I'd be surprised.
Oh, yeah, we could always check it out another time to find out.
Yeah.
They can't immediately dive in and start, dissecting the remains of these ancient people who lived there. So there's always been a great difficulty in actually conducting this research. But I'm very grateful to my colleague, Dr. Ellie Dolgan, who is a science writer who shared with me this fascinating preprint study that's going to be appearing in a very prestigious journal soon. And it gave us the results of a new study that comes out of Erfurt, Germany. Let me show you that study and explain how it depicts in much greater detail the genetic history of early Ashkenazi Jews. So first of all, it's dealing with this site in Germany, the city of Erfurt, which has a known, well-documented Jewish community living there. The title of the article is Genome-Wide Data from Medieval German Jews Show that the Ashkenazi Founder Event predated the 14th century. And there are over 20 authors from really prestigious institutions all over the world, led by S. Waldman, putting together this amazing piece of research. It's about 100 pages long in total. I was so fascinated to read it. Here's a photograph of the actual discovery itself. It's a cemetery just outside the city walls of ancient Erfurt or medieval Erfurt. You can see in the top picture, the city wall is just there on the right. And in the bottom, you see actually the discovery of the remains. Now, once it was suggested that these were in fact Jews, the study actually went to some of the most premier authorities of Jewish law to ensure that the remains were treated with the proper respect. In fact, the research was conducted entirely on teeth that were detached from the skulls of the deceased, which constitutes a different category of remains, and it was much more lenient with regards to assessing the DNA in those teeth. Also fascinating, they looked at differences in the enamel and were able to identify, in fact, that some of the remains came from a slightly different location earlier. Absolutely fascinating research. But what I really want to focus on is this idea of the founder event and something called the genetic bottleneck, which together gives us a much clearer picture of how Jews came to Ashkenaz in the first place. Please have a look at this diagram, which I have painstakingly created for you, that illustrates how I see the idea of a genetic bottleneck. You've got these curving lines, and they move upwards in time. At the bottom of this bottleneck, you have Jews in ancient Israel. And at the top, you have modern Ashkenazi Jews. We're speaking specifically about Ashkenazi Jews because that's the results of the Erfurt research. So the Jews in ancient Israel, there's really no category of race within traditional Jewish thinking. There is a category of religion. There is a category of tribal affiliation. And you see in lots of literary sources that there are tons of people from outside the Jewish world coming into the Jewish genetic population base. So, for example, in the Bible, there's descriptions of the Moabite woman Ruth, who of course comes in and marries Boaz, and then later one of her
Ariel,
offspring
I'd like to
is
comment on his chart real quick.
David, King David.
His chart isn't really representative with that gradual decrease. What tends to be much more consistent with a genetic bottleneck is more of a culling event, where you have a large population and it tends to be very quickly reduced to a small number, at which point that small number reproduces into a large number.
Oh, yeah, I don't think he's he's just demonstrating the bottleneck event, not what like you can see how it's starting to increase, but it's very slight.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it tends to be, it's like you have a whole bunch of population and then it drops down to very few and then it goes up again and drops down. It's much more of a punctuated equilibrium, a punctuated evolution sort of concept. Stephen Gould is the old school one on that one. Tag.
I'm almost sure enough that I would bet money. I mean, I'm not going to, but I'm almost sure enough that it's probably because he didn't figure out how, and I'm probably projecting. But
oh, no. This is one of those where this is the rabbi's chart that he's doing off of his science writer sort of thing. And he might not understand punctuated evolution in the same way.
Oh,
and this is a good way. This is a good enough way to explain it to a lot of people. But it's probably, it leads to the false impression that there was sort of like a gradual winnowing, as opposed to, again, like something like the Holocaust, where your Jewish population today, descendants of them, like you saw in Schindler's List, it was a culling, and you had a few survivors, and they're reproducing and having, the population expanding again. That's more where the bottlenecks come in. Tag him.
Graham, he's not a rabbi. He's actually the I don't know if he still is, but the dean of Touro College in Florida, I think, or maybe New York. I'm not sure.
Okay, my mistake.
All I was saying is maybe he didn't know how to edit the graphic to make it where it's because you would want to make this more like stretch out.
So it's more the stuff underneath it. It's more like it should be almost a huge population right at the cutoff, and then you have the founder event.
Well, but I guess that's my point. I think probably he wasn't using a professional graphing thing in order to do this. I mean, look at the arrow.
Yeah, no, he definitely wasn't, and that's what I was saying. I was giving him a pass. I was just trying to emphasize where this chart can lead to some misimpressions. Tag it.
David, you have Antipater, who was the father of King Herod. He was an Idumean, coming into the Jewish genetic population base. So, for example, in the Bible, there's descriptions of the the Moabite woman Ruth, who of course comes in and marries Boaz, and then later one of her offspring is well, actually her descendants is David, King David. You have Antipater, who was the father of King Herod. He was an Idumean. You have Helen, who was the father. Her descendants is David, King David. You have Antipater, who was the father of King Herod. He was an Idumean. You have Helena of Adiabene, who converts to Judaism and joins the Jewish people and is actually buried in Jerusalem. You've got lots and lots of examples of people who come to the Jewish community later in life. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no worries. Probably going to be doing this another time also. Also because I only have a little bit to do. So what I'm thinking, I mean, this is probably kind of heretical, but so I'm going to do a founder population, except I'm going to do it in like Israel and basically do this like, time travel thing or something. Basically going to be like characters that are based off of, well, yeah, you'll be able to see, but then probably the playthrough that I'll do more seriously will be like I'll create 12 different founders for 12 different tribes, or like based on 12 different tribes, even though it's like obviously taking place way after. But yeah, take care, Mateus. Anyway.
Then there is a significant historical displacement with the Roman-Jewish wars, starting with the Great War from 66 to 74 of the Common Era. A massive number of Jews are displaced from ancient Israel and taken as slaves to Rome. That number is expanded with the Bar Kokhba rebellion 70-odd years later. And there's already an existing Jewish diaspora community living in the Italian peninsula. So that's when you have a significant population of Jews moving to that part of the world. So beginning in the first, second century in particular, you have Jews who are also marrying South Italians and then later North Italians. And the genetic base of those Jews who are displaced to Italy is naturally expanded by their connections with other people. Of course, we're not getting here into the whole discussion of the various types of relationships. Certainly some of them involve conversion of one form or another. Some of them might involve forced relations, of course, rapes. But at any rate, you definitely have an admixture of DNA during the early part of late antiquity. Then you get to something which we call the founder event. And this is the period when a small number of Italian Jews...
This is more semantic. And like, while, I mean, it's technically true, probably, I don't know, probably just like, didn't think about it, but, I probably wouldn't refer to, a rape as a relationship. Even though it technically we have relationships with people we're acquaintances with, but like just from a standpoint of like like common speech, it doesn't sound right.
And it's like, here's where I'm looking at it is I always look at what the other possible explanations are, because I always try to have at least 3 possible explanations. And part of what he's looking at. My apology.
No worries, though. I do have to probably get going in 15 minutes. So if you could just get to the point. Sorry.
Okay, I'll hit this real quick. One of the things I wonder here is if there wasn't an existing group of Jews in these areas, and all of a sudden they became more successful, and that additional success is what generated them basically the founding event and having better, more offspring and everything because they were more successful, as opposed to necessarily a migration at that point from Italy. It was a success of the Jews already existing in Germany. And again, part of it is they would have been working, some of them would have had Italian heritage from the trading that they would have been doing over time. Tag in to see what you think.
So, I mean, yeah, he's talking about the founder event. He's not talking about he's not talking about the origin of all Jews in Germany, but specifically just that this founder event of was it the founder event, which is responsible for the bottleneck, is traced back to this population that migrates to Northern Europe from Italy. But
that's what I'm questioning is how do we know that it was a migration versus they were already there and just started reproducing much more quickly?
Because of the violence against Jews in in Germany around this time. I might be off with this, but there was a reason why Jews didn't settle in Gaul until around the 2nd century, and then once Gaul became,
I was going to say this is areas that we need to go into. I'm just saying, I'm questioning that I'm questioning if that's the only possibility and whether there might not be a better explanation. Let's just go forward on this one with that.
So I guess my point, though, is it's not to say there weren't already Jews in Germany, but it's just that because a majority, almost all Jews in Western Europe were killed during the Crusades. And again, it's not saying that the bottleneck event is back in 800 CE. It's saying that's the farthest they can trace it back. But
actually, with the genetics, they're pretty much going to be saying it happened at 800. That's how they can do it with genetics. They can pretty much say, yeah, 800 was when it happened. And you're talking, this is about 200 years prior to the Crusades.
No, but again, there's violence that pre-exists the Crusades. But anyway, let's continue.
Migrate to the Ashkenazic heartland in central Germany, around the Rhineland. And that is genetically calculated to be about 45 generations ago, if you work with a number of about 25 years per generation. And the authors of the study suggest that that founder event dates to somewhere around the year 800. And that corresponds with a lot of the data that we have from other sources, including literary sources. And when you calculate that based on the Erfurt remains, it's very clear that the people who were buried in Erfurt, the 33 individuals discovered there, are the descendants of people who have this combination of Middle Eastern and Italian DNA, to be sure. Another fascinating thing is that the narrowing of this genetic bottleneck, because the people who were born from 800 in Ashkenaz till about 1350 are basically drawn from this very small sample of people. And in fact, the authors observed that modern Ashkenazi Jews, even after another 700 years, are also really closely linked to the genetic profile that they see among the Erfurt remains. So even though there's been a tremendous amount of change in the Jewish world over the last 100 years or so, Ashkenazi Jews still seem to have a very similar profile to this medieval image. I don't know what this would look like if we were to examine it again in 200 years from now or something, but this essentially describes a picture of how modern Ashkenazi Jews came to be. Have a look at this map here. And basically the picture we have is where the number 1 is. You have the Jews exiled from Israel in the context of the Roman Jewish Wars. They settle in Italy, and there they mix with the local Italian population and eventually make their way up to the Ashkenazic heartland. And the actual percentages, now it's hard to calculate precisely because there's some time where you have a lot of southern Italian influence and later the northern Italian influence, but the authors of this study suggest that the Middle Eastern DNA of the Erfurt remains is somewhere between 15 and 45%, depending on the individual and how you measure the difference between southern and northern Italian influence. And that Italian influence is somewhere between 45 and up to 70% of their DNA. So that's basically confirming the literary picture we have of Ashkenazi Jews being essentially the descendants of Middle Eastern Jews making their way through the Italian peninsula. I find that fascinating just on its own because it helps solidify our picture of how the Ashkenazi Jews came to be. But of course, there's a lot of other implications. As, for example, the Norwich study was able to identify specific illnesses that affect Ashkenazim, like, for example, breast cancer and cystic fibrosis and things like that. And that may have implications for later cures. It also, puts to rest some of the more bizarre theories, for example, of a Khazarian influence on Ashkenazi Jewry, which is not supported by any of this research. And it's also especially relevant in today's social moment because there's so many people who are, fairly vociferously arguing that Ashkenazi Jews are not actually Jewish. Some other population is Jewish, which is kind of bizarre. I mean, historically speaking, Jews have been accused of being communists. They've been accused of being capitalists. We're at a moment now where Jews are accused of being not actually Jews. That's something new. At any rate, I'm fascinated by this study, and I'm really hoping that if you want to learn more of this, please join me on our Kosher Riverboat cruise to the Netherlands, where we'll be really focusing on the history of Ashkenazi Jewry in particular. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you again.
So just for context, before you give your thoughts, he's gone in depth to the whole, into the history of Jews in Khazaria and the conversion of the Khazars to Judaism, of the nobles. And it's something he recognizes, and that it's a big, that's the reason why you end up with so many Jews in this, region of Ukraine and basically of the steppe. But that in terms of basically the influence, the genetic influence from the Khazars would have been so small because it was just the nobility. And so over time, it would basically become indetectable because it would have been such a small percentage of the population in general that over time would get diluted even more.
Well, one of the conflicts of that one is I looked at some of the fine print on the study that they were using. They were using the Y haplogroup. So what you're looking there is basically entirely a male migration pattern. You can't consider anything in that chart having anything to do with women.
But there's a reason why that does still hold some weight. It's because in terms of
here's the point, Ariel. You hit the key point. It carries some weight. He went further than that and is talking about conclusive. He's saying this puts to rest something. You can't put to rest something if you're having, some conclusion out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Though, I guess what he's saying, though, is because of the similarity to the modern population. But again, and so I guess...
Here's the other question. Do you know what those percentages, when they were talking about, 70% from Italy, 25% from the Middle East? Do you know what that's going to break down to in their study? Because what it breaks down to is that's the percentage of individual. An individual comes back 100% Middle Eastern, 100% Italian. And it's the percentage of those that were buried in the cemetery. It's not like one of those persons was 70% Italian, 30% Middle Eastern.
Wait,
see what I'm saying?
That doesn't make any sense.
How doesn't it make any sense?
Because there is, people aren't generally ever, especially when you're dealing with immigrant populations, it's rare that you're going to have people be 100% from this region. And even if they...
That's the point. That's the point of using the Y haplogroup. The Y haplogroup is handed down father to son without fail.
So that's what I'm trying to explain to you. If, say you have a Jewish woman who marries a non-Jewish man, she's no longer part of the community. And so because of that, you're not going...
Think of it as this is the males. She doesn't matter. Her sons are going to carry his Y chromosome, which is the only thing they tested for in that test, in that study.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in that case, the only way that it would remain in the Jewish population would be if the husband converts.
Well, what I'm saying here, Ariel, every person has where their every man has where their male ancestor was at any given point in time. This study says that there were, in that cemetery, there were 100 people, 100 Jewish people buried there. 70 of those Jewish people, their male DNA came from Italy. 30 of those Jewish people there, their male DNA came from the Middle East.
But that's not how people. Oh, wait, you're saying because
it's the men, yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean.
This is why it's important to distinguish between the Y haplogroup. The more what you're talking about with is going to get watered down. That's the autosomal group. That's the skin color. That's all that stuff. That has nothing to do with the Y haplogroup. And then you have the mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down mother to daughter infallibly.
All right, so oh shoot, I should have.
No, I was glad I was able to explain that part to you, because that's important to understand about the Y DNA, because it's like my Y haplogroup traces back to 100 AD.
So actually, speaking about that, why don't we make you or make a founder for your line in this game? Because I mean, I'm still trying to figure out. Oh, and so this is a nice thing. One of the updates that I added recently, because oh my god, I probably spent most of my time in this game creating characters and not even playing them. Because every time there's an update or whatever, then sometimes you'll have to basically start a whole new save because there's issues. But with this, even if that's the case, it has it where you can, let's see, so we're starting in 769, but let's see, create your own ruler. Oh wait, we have to click a place. So where's your family go to?
Let me take a quick look here. I was going to say go Ulster. Go just south of the lake, along the river.
Yeah, it's just one
Oh, okay,
one.
okay.
So here, let's see, create your own ruler. So, what religion should we choose? So, just for context, there's a lot of really cool choices. So you can see, where is it? Semitic. You have Haranism. So always have that as what the people in Haran are. You have Dusharism for Nabatea, Hubalism for Arabia, Aksumitism for Ethiopia, and Atarism for South Arabia. And then you have, let's see, where is this? Mythologia Romana. You have the cult of Sol Invictus. You have the Hellenic pantheon, and you have the Mos Maiorum, or the Mythologia Romana in that case. Then where is it? Trying to think. Paganism. It's just general paganism. I also have a what is it? A plugin or a mod that lets it's a blood cult. So we could have some fun with that. Have them off on some remote island or something. Shoot, wait, am I unmuted?
No, I'm hearing you.
Or no, I said, am I unmuted? So I guess you can hear me, basically, is what I was saying. Yeah, okay. Let's see, and then with Judaism, you have Khuzarism. Khuzaris emphasize the common and correct interpretation of the halacha in conjunction with Khazar traditions and local folklore. You have Samaritanism, you have Malabarism, so that's in India.
Interesting, they have a Khazar Jewish option.
Well, again, it's the thing is that it makes sense because you would have had the people who converted, they would have been practicing Judaism, but they would have also kept their own traditions. And but the thing is, like, because there's so little, at least I mean, maybe someone has yet to make the argument that, like, you have to find a parallel between the two traditions, but because there's so seemingly little mark in terms of culture or language, and seemingly genetics. But again, part of the issue is how would you even know? Like, would it survive? Well, I guess actually, in terms of but yeah, what happens if you have a line where, like, they end up only having daughters? Then the Y DNA doesn't get passed on, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the end. That's the end of the Y line for that one. Yep.
Oh, let's check out the different Christianities. So, that's a lot. Mozarabism, a descendant of the early Iberian rites, Mozarabic Christianity has maintained a level of independence from Rome.
I was going to say, if you got some sort of Celtic, would probably go with something like that.
All right, cool.
No, that would be an under Christianity.
Well, I mean, but there might be. Also, wait, was it? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. Was the? Oh no, I know what I was looking for in that one case, but
no, they had old school Celtic Christianity. They got persecuted by Rome later on too.
Let's see, where is it?
If nothing else, you can go Bogomil. That's always fun.
Well, what did they believe?
They were basically very Gnostic related. They were sort of precursors to the Cathars.
Interesting. So, I'm trying to think, because sometimes they'll have it listed in a place where you wouldn't expect it.
I was going to say, in the Christianity, they might be calling it something rather than Celtic.
Let's see.
They definitely did a lot of work on the religious part.
Some of these are from mods, though.
Okay. Well, even so, it's still a lot of work done.
Yeah. There's Basque Pagan, but that I don't know how close that is to. So yeah, let's see. This is adoptionism. Let's see. Christianity. Wait, what's this? I'm gonna look this up on my phone really quick. What's this? Have you ever seen this pronunciation?
No. I was just starting to look it up myself.
Bosnian.
Okay.
Wait, if I would have read, maybe it would have said, yep. The Christianity of the Bosnian Highlands. Literally, sometimes when just reading. Let's see, Adamites claim to have... Oh, they have Adamites. Awesome. You have Massalians. Historians. Wait, what?
No, Insular is the one to pick. That's Celtic. Insular is another name for Celtic Christianity.
Interesting. Oh, that's just what it happened to already be.
Go figure.
Oh. Well, that would explain it. It's because...
Oh, yeah, because you picked Ulster, so that was it came as the default.
Talk about circular logic. But yeah, so create. So let's see. So I guess, like, this could be your self-insert character, and you'll just, we could name him Graham, and then you could create whatever last name you want for him or whatever.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, that works. You can go with the last name of Kalla, Colla.
I'm not going to remember that until I put it in. But so what class do you want to be? Do you want to be and this you can also have it like where it kind of transfers down the line, but do you want to be like was it like focus on intellect, martial? So actually I'll just say the traits. So you have intelligence, you have martial, you have stewardship, you have diplomacy, and you have intrigue. And so intrigue's like spies, diplomacy's basically it's I think it's also used for like kings and stuff. Then you have stewardship for like tradesmen's and stuff. Then martial for soldier, and then intellect. It's split into theology, medicine, and philosophy. Maybe I think.
Now, look into stewardship. I'm curious on what's that one.
So
is that just trade stuff?
Yeah. So ideally, if you get a full education by the time you're an adult in this game, you'll end up with four stars in your trait. So we'll put you with 4. And so with this, because we're creating it, like we're not going to follow the customization points. We're just going to make overpowered characters, and we'll just end up ruling the world. But yeah, like just tell me which ones stick out to you.
I was going to say, let's go with stewardship.
Okay, so temperate. According to this character, it's best to enjoy things in moderation. Does that describe you?
Oh, I would say so.
All right, so try to get in alphabetical order, though. So let's see. Start with A's. Are you ambitious?
As opposed to what?
This character knows what they want, and they are not afraid to try and get it.
I'd say not so much.
Yeah, okay. So let's see.
That tends to go against balance. The previous one that you were talking about.
Okay, so actually, here, this will be fun. I'll try to do it based off of my interactions with you. So let's see. So compassionate. I'd say probably content. What they already have, be it much or little, it is enough for this character.
Yeah, no, I say that fits.
Let's see. Let's see. Diligent, and that also kind of goes into the only thing is stress loss -50, so you don't get rid of stress easily. But this character is just not shy away from hard work. Does that describe you?
Oh, I would definitely say so.
Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. This character has a strong sense of justice.
Yep, I just can't argue with that one.
Let's see. Or I'll add this back, but let's see. Honest. This character values truth and sincerity highly.
Kinda I fit that.
It's like I'm scared that like we're basically creating like a voodoo doll of you or something.
It wouldn't be the first time that happened in a video game, Ariel. I've done that to myself before. Don't feel bad. That's part of the point of video games, is you're basically creating, an avatar of yourself. And again, it's what you want to explore and stuff. And I tend to want to explore me. I don't want to. I hate I'm the person. I've never never played any of those Grand Theft Auto. I just, hate abusing NPCs even in video games.
I feel that. Let's see. So, did we add just that? Yeah, we did. Are you patient? To wait and bide their time is the specialty of this character.
I'd say so.
right, and then let's see. This character does not back down for anything.
Yeah, no, that's my Rorschaching every so often that counts for that.
Let's see, and then temperate. According to this character, it's best to enjoy things in moderation. So I think that's Let's see. How about this? Religious conviction burns bright at the center of this character.
I don't know about religion. Let's skip that one on religion. Orthodoxy orthodoxy can conflict with truth. So.
True. I see that. Okay, so let's see. What's this? Interesting. I've never heard Craven ever used. What on earth? I mean, that's good if you want to avoid battle, but no, I think we're enough on personality traits here. So now we have other traits. So, what's your favorite number between 1 through
8? 8.
Oh, that. And this actually. Wait. I guess yeah. We could always edit this later, but let's see. Let's see. Where is it? 8. Do you want to be a vampire or a werewolf?
Not particularly.
Okay, so let's start from the top. Any character traits? Probably don't want fleeting, but there's actually. I mean, we could always add that later. Let's stick to. Actually, here I have to use the restroom, but explain how you imagine your character living in 769, born in. I mean, also, I guess this is a nice thing because they're self-insert characters, and because this isn't supposed to be like our own reality. That you can be however old you want to be. So, how old do you want to be?
Let's go about 18. Let's start early 20s, maybe. Or about 20, or whatever works here.
I have to use the restroom, but yeah. So imagine what's he doing in 769?
I was going to say pretty much that if we're going with this one, it's the old stomping ground is Armagh and Aether, the general kingdom in there. And, again, probably, some sort of son of one of the local noblemen, part of the sept there. Sitting there, basically, the idea is to be good for the people. The king's only as good as the people are. The reinforcing sort of setup. Might for right. That sort of general concept. Typical, you're probably a couple hundred years post St. Patrick and all, where he ended up setting up everything up in this neck of the woods.
Cool. So I'm back. So let's check out. So, trying to think because I have this whole. It's been a while since I did this. Also, I got some new mods. I don't know what I was saying. So let's see. Oh, this is cool. Steward Constable is the the thing that's connected for this. So basically, you can start you're a full adult in this game at 16, but if you start a bit older, you'll have more experience points already that you can use to get skills or whatever. But the younger you are, the more time you have on this character before they croak, and then you have to play their descendant.
Well, we can start at 16. Play as long as you can on this character, and then go forward.
Okay. So, let's see, what's this? Okay, so, oh, interesting. Oh, this is so cool. Okay, wait. So no, we're not. This is based off of. Oh, this is based off of like the court being appointed to a different court position. So we don't want to mess with that because that's something you get later. Wait, they even have what's an attiliator? I don't even know. Let's see. Okay, so here you have what height you want to be. There's benefits and downsides. So if you're smaller, you have. Wait, what? That's weird. I thought it. That's strange. I remember it giving you some sort of like if you were shorter that you had the ability to be like faster. I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere else, but
we can go with the generic 5'10".
So that's like what, average?
I was going to say it's probably a little above average for that time period. My guess would be about 5'7" would be average.
So tall?
But yeah, tall.
Are you an early bird?
I wouldn't check that one necessarily.
Night owl?
Given how long we stream and the times, yeah.
Let's see. So what's that give you? Oh, interesting. Clan vassal opinion +5, tribal vassal opinion +5, mercenary vassal opinion +5, monthly intrigue lifestyle experience +10. So even though you're not focusing on that, it still is useful. Let's see. Early bird gives you extra diplomacy, but it gives you. So basically, you're going to have more influence with the underground because of this, and like more like clans versus this is more the early bird's more about diplomacy and being connected to the higher ups. So higher ups versus grassroots.
No, that's fitting for me and my people.
Let's see. Do you like bitter food?
Doesn't everybody? But
I mean,
yeah.
Do you? Because
it doesn't matter that much to me.
Oh,
yeah, high pain tolerance, definitely.
Likelihood of dying in battle +100%. Sweet tooth.
Not so much. More salty.
Yeah, really, what we're kind of supposed to be focusing on is the stuff that really sticks out because, let's see, hypercalculic.
That's sickly, isn't it? Or
what?
No. What's the word?
Hypercalculic.
Oh, that probably fits me. Isn't that calculating and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Eidetic memory.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Keen-eared.
No.
Hawk-eyed.
No.
Let's see. Do you want to be a blood mage?
What does a blood mage do?
The power of blood magic flows through their veins. I'm not sure. You don't have to practice it, or actually, wait, no, it's a fame thing, so it is something that you acquire. So,
Okay.
yeah, never mind. So, let's see. Go back to the other ones. So, let's see. Here, well, you wouldn't really be in battle yet, so it wouldn't make any sense. You want to be a witch or a wizard? You want to be a wizard, Harry?
Sure, whatever. We'll go wizard.
I mean, I'm going to do it for me. So, let's see. What's this? Were you born to prominent parents, a rich life, and high expectations?
I would say so.
Let's see. So, trying to find ones that are. Let's see. Poet? I'd say so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you want to be a warrior of the faith?
No. That's a big no.
Let's see.
Crusader is not me.
Shrewd. Life has taught this character the value of good judgment and sharp wit.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. So this is interesting. So this trait, pure-blooded, you get from. I think that I'm pretty sure that you need to have like one trait from each of these. So so basically, this was it. Basically, intellect, physique, and beauty. So. Don't feel bad about choosing genius. I mean, that's what I choose for myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then, yeah, that way it gives you one, and the whole point is the goal is to marry into a beautiful bloodline, and then your children have both, and then you marry into a physique bloodline, so on and so forth. How would you like some typhus or smallpox?
Well, it's better than a big pox, but no.
How about some consumption? Gout? Infirm? I feel like this is the 10 plagues of Egypt. Cancer? One leg? One eye? Wait, what? Is it not updating? Oh. Leper? Lover's pox? Great pox? Pneumonia? Possessed?
So I'm going to be dead by 17?
Oh, no, don't worry. This is all this is all in the mind of the creator. It's going to be gone before you're created.
Okay. I was going to say, with the way you're going there, man, I'm dead by 17.
Let's see, where was this? Scarred, blind. Oh my god. Oh my god, okay. And there is such a thing as miracles. Oh my god, this is so much fun. Okay, so let's see. So journaler, yep. Let's see, confider, and sharing their problems with a close confidant. This character has become able to manage life far better than. Actually, wait, no. Is this a strat? Oh no, this is a trait. It's not like something that you develop because you have these they're like stress traits. So if you get too stressed without relieving stress, then you could become inappetite. Basically, you could lose your appetite. You could become compulsive spender. You could become a hashish eater, which there's nothing wrong with that. And so it's interesting because you actually getting these traits. It lets you have the ability to basically do that vice in order to relieve it. So if you're a drunkard, you can drink, and you can only do this every so often. It has like a cooldown, but so you can smoke hash to calm down. But I don't know, did they have access to cannabis back then? Or I mean, it would have had to be imported. So like you'd have to probably justify it by finding a character from the Middle East, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say it's not like marijuana plants can't be indigenous to Europe. It's just the idea hash was coming from the other.
So, what about Confider?
I was going to say that's not bad. I can see that a little bit.
Let's see. There's herbalist and gardener. Wait, I forget if these are. This is something that you can develop over time, but if you feel that they particularly stick out, we could choose them.
I was say herbalist.
So so you're more interested in like working with them after they're grown than growing them?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. And then these are ones that you develop, I think. Lifestyle trait. Wait, I'm trying to think. How do lifestyle? Wait, is this lifestyle? Oh, wait. Oh, if that's the case, actually, wait. I'm trying to think. Wait, so physician, those are different. Wise man, I'm just trying to think. Okay, yeah, so these are different. So, let's see. Okay, and then what about venerable or enduring? It gives you an extra years of fertility and life expectancy. And it's also congenital.
I was going to say enduring, I would think.
You want to be a rhino.
Pretty much.
So let's see. I wonder what's possessed. That'd be interesting to make like a character who's like possessed by a demon. Oh wait. Oh, okay. That's actually horrible. This is basically just explaining it. I mean, I don't. It's like it almost seems like it's implying that it's just perceived by them, so that there's actually something else wrong with them, but it's just unknown. In the same way that I'm trying to think if there's another example. But let's see. Where is it? Oh, what about this? Hyperlexic. Do you read a lot?
Yeah.
All right, and then let's see. That's interesting trait to include that you can, you can like roll your tongue. It's like that's very specific to include in this. All right, so let's see. So, you should be fully trained by now, and then let's see.
Oh, rolling tongue is one of those genetic traits.
Oh yeah, no, it's just kind of interesting to include, in the game. Let's see. So Celtic. Wait, was this? Go dialect?
If you want a last, I was going to say, if you want a last name, Kala would work.
So
Irish, Celtic.
Irish or Gaelic?
Irish, go Gaelic if it's one of the two.
Oh wait, there's Gaelic. So
no, not Gaelic.
That's under Celtic though.
Well, where would Gaelic fit in there?
Probably Gaelic, I'm guessing, but
I thought they had Gaelic as separate. No, Gaelic's from Gaul.
Oh,
no, you're in Ireland. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So
it's Celtic, but it's still in France. Yeah.
Interesting. What's the monks?
The monks?
No, Manx.
Manx would be Isle of Man.
Oh, Manx. Interesting. So Gaelic. Let's see. What's the difference between?
Go Irish. I was going to say, difference between Gaelic and Irish? I don't know.
So yeah, here, let's see. So, okay, so pastoralists gives you extra disease resistance and a little bit extra like battle toughness, and it also gives you extra bonuses in pastoral land buildings, refined poetry. Characters of this culture perform better when appointed to the court position. Poet trait has additional bonuses. Polygamous rulers, if allowed by gender law, can have up to 4 spouses. If that even, oh my god, that could be way too much. Maritime mercantilism.
One is more than enough, man. One is more than enough.
So the trade port line of building can be constructed 1 era early. Basically, you get more money from coastal holdings. And then monastic communities. Temperate trait is more common. Temperate traits have additional bonuses. The monk traits have additional bonuses. And what?
Yeah, I'm thinking Irish is the call. Yeah.
What's this? Characters of this culture are more likely to accept taking the vows, especially your underage children. Interesting. And then
definitely, I would say definitely of those Irish. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Gaelic is much more focused on kind of like the older traditions.
Actually, when I was looking it up, Gaelic is more actually Scottish.
Interesting.
And again, there's a lot of overlap there with the Kingdom of Dalriada and all of that, which is where my ancestors came over to Ireland from.
Interesting.
We conquered Ulster in the 400s.
So, I just spell it like this?
What? I was going to say, okay. Oh, I was going to say on the name of the dynasty, put Kala on that one, yeah. Or, Dekala or something like that.
What about Ocala?
Sure. Ocala's fine.
How do you spell that?
Colla. That's from the 3 Colors.
No, wait, what's your motto again?
Oh.
No, your motto.
I was going to say, I got so many of them. Which one are you looking for here?
Like the truth one.
Oh, this sentence has 5 words?
No. Like the like your 3 things.
Oh, decency, honesty, integrity. Yep. Perfect. Good call. Thank you on catching me on that one, Ariel. I should have thought of that.
Let's see. Irish translator. Let's see. Decency, honesty, and integrity.
Yep.
I don't even know how to say these words. Be able to see that?
Yeah. It's close enough. I was going to say it's close enough. We know what it is. It's not like we speak Irish.
Yeah, but it's about the magic. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Here. What should we do for the emblem?
Go back up a sec. What are those animals?
Sorry, one second. Let's see, animals. Any specific? I mean, there's a lot of animals if you tell me which one you're looking for.
If they got a boar, throw a boar in.
That's not kosher.
Then you better not eat me.
That's a good deterrent. Well, I guess.
Sort of the monarch butterfly effect.
Yeah, it's not really going to be useful unless Charlemagne Charles Martel fails at the Battle of Tours. Was that a good joke?
That was. I like that one.
Yeah, it's like, you can't conquer me. Me and all my land are contaminated. Let's see. Where are the boars? Bring out the boars. Oh,
there they are. I see it on the left side. Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a way to make it bigger. Oh yeah, wait. No, I have to. How do I? This is annoying. I thought there was a way I could zoom in. Guess not. Let's see. So here's the boars. Yeah, how come it's so strange, right? I thought I'd be able to. Maybe this is a new thing. Strange. All right, so, and then what about the color? Oh, I think I might know what the problem is. Start from scratch. Is that? No? That didn't do it. Discard changes. Okay, where were we? So, adjust design. Oh. Well, I mean, we could always edit it later. That's a nice thing because they have this new save feature. But anyway, so let's go down to the boars. I think it's right up here. Oh, wow. It was right at the top. We missed it. So let me know which one looks best. So you have this. It's a little bit too big. This one's better. And then here you have just a boar's head.
No, go the full body. Yeah.
All right. And then we can change up the color. What colors are you looking for?
Let's go with white boar on a green background.
All right, actually, one second, because I think is there? Yeah, I can change. Okay, so here we can actually add patterns. So, do you want like a crest or checkerboards or stripes?
Is that going to be over top of the boar or behind it or what?
Here, I'll show the boar. So, here. And then, let's see. White, and then, should we make the board green?
No, the board should be white and the background should be green.
Maybe like almost like a grayish white?
No, it should be white.
All right, proper white. Let me know when.
That's fine.
All right. And then let's see. Then yeah, it's like you can't really see much of
you can't change the shield color.
Oh yeah, I can.
Okay.
So let's see. Background. You can make it bigger. Do you prefer one?
It should be a green background, yeah.
No, but like what I mean is, would you like it smaller and it's kind of like almost clipping a bit out, or bigger and it has the like bubbles almost around the.
That one looks. I was gonna say the one on the. I was gonna say yeah. That looks fine.
Okay, so let's go with green, and then
no. The actually on the gold shield color is what I was talking about.
So which should the background be?
The one behind that. I don't know. You can go with whatever you want behind that, but it should be a white boar on a green background.
All right. Let's see. So any type of green?
That looks good. A little brighter. A little brighter green, lighter. That looks good.
Like that?
Yeah.
And then maybe have a gold background.
Sure.
I'm trying to think what else. What about orange, or is that too on the nose?
No, you do not want orange.
And why is that?
That's the counter color to green. It's the Ulster Orangeman.
So here we got gold for gold, and then oh wait, shoot, what? Emblems, dang it. Shoot, did I just... 1 second. Okay, that won't take too long to discard. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
All right, so at least...
That's how you learn on some of these override systems. It's like that overrides all your previous choices.
Okay, interesting. So I guess another thing that we could actually... Wait, does this work, or would it pattern? Yeah, okay, interesting. So whatever, we'll just go back to what we had. So it was here. One second. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I wasn't ignoring you, Saul. I was too busy paying attention to the game. But here in the meantime, let me just get some music on. Let's see.
גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד. The whole world is a narrow bridge. The whole world is a narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. The whole world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. והעיקר, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד.
Alright, cool. So it's safe. And it's probably a good place to end off on because I need to sleep. So I can get some good sleep before my class. But my idea is we could always set up.
The music's a little loud for you talking.
Oh, sorry. So this is probably a good place to end off because I was able to say that, we didn't start the game, but we did start making the character. And so, see, I can go here, create, and then load, and here you are. So it's saved, which is something that's a relatively new update. And what I was saying is we could even set up an evil blood cult off on some, literally Iceland, which has its own freaking volcano. You can have an evil volcano layer.
Cool, and that's where you go to the center of the earth and Jules Verne Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah. And that's where all the aliens are.
I thought they were all in Antarctica.
Yeah, but how do you think you're supposed to get underneath the ice? It's through Iceland. Duh.
Of course.
But yeah, and then we could even set up some some Neo-Phoenicians on Crete, or some Neo-Carthaginians, and some I guess some more Neo-Phoenicians, and some Neo-Assyrians, and create a pagan revivalist movement in Arabia. And I mean, it's kind of hard to do that for Judaism because it doesn't exactly have like the old Israelite tradition. But I guess you could theoretically reform it. Oh, and old Egyptian traditions and old Greek and Roman, and you basically have the old world at war with the new world. It would be so interesting.
Yeah, no, these games are great for like immersion, where you can basically get a more hands-on feel for what life was like there, as opposed to like academic studies.
I mean, yeah, in a certain way. I mean, unfortunately, it's not as immersive as some other games in the sense that you can't really enter your character. You can make decisions for them, and so it's immersive in that way. But you know.
Well, I was talking video games in general.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's like, I always fan of, Sid Meier's Civilization, the God games like that. And then you got, your individual role-playing ones too.
The thing that's really unfortunate about this is that it literally has the map for this, but the mod that like unlocks all this area, it actually maybe some of the problems would be gone now, because I don't remember being able to go all the way this far out before. But basically, there's a mod that adds Asia, and so because they already had the land out here, but it just wasn't like you can't go there, which is kind of interesting because you definitely have connections with the. Oh, that's sneaky! I bet you they're going to make a DLC.
Oh yeah, no, that's already planned in. Anytime you release a game, you have at least your first 2 years worth of content plotted out. Usually at least 1 or 2 DLCs.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. And then also I have here, I can show you real quick. When I just go as here, Abyssids. Right, hopefully it doesn't crash after all. Okay, perfect.
So they got vampire and
holy crap,
lycanthropy over there.
Yeah, I mean it's a mod. So check out Jerusalem, dude. Wow, it's developed pretty nice, but you can even see Dome of the Rock. But you can even upgrade it into the 3rd temple. And then you have.
When you do that, does that bring the end of the world, or?
I'm not sure. Then you have Baalbek and the Temple of Jupiter. You have let's see.
They got Petra? No.
Yeah.
Oh, they do? Cool.
And then you have.
Everybody give me a big claw. I'm not afraid. Say claw. Say it like
Mecca. So, and here's an interesting thing. So, where is Midian? Midian?
I thought it was just east of the Gulf of Aqaba. Traditionally, right in there.
Yeah, Midian. So, I kind of find it rough to believe that
Because they were like fighting back and forth across the Gulf of Aqaba.
Yeah, because there's people who argue that Midian is referring to the area around Mecca, but that just doesn't make sense because look how far it is.
It's closer to Mecca's too far south. You can sit there and say that Midian could extend to like the Tema Oasis. Tema there. Yeah. It's sort of like that area there, the Waj, Tema, that area is all Midian. It would have been all Midianite back in the day. Like I sit there and say the area where you have that, the laser cut stone.
Shamar? Wait,
yeah.
What? Wait, how did you get that?
What? You're not asking me that, right?
Yeah.
What?
What's this about laser cut stone?
Oh, what? That's the area that's sort of similar. It's the area similar to Petra, only it's become a tourist. Let me see.
Holy fuck, dude! I think we just found a really good place to end on. I don't mean like ending now. I mean exploring this and then ending. So look at this. This is the region that Ma'an, Tabuk, Taima, and Aqaba are all in, and Madian is Madian in here? Yeah, Madian's in Al-Aqaba. So look at this. No, not Kingdom of Medina. The Duchy of Shamar. Now, does that ring of anything to you?
Hold on here. What was that, Ariel?
The Duchy of Shamar.
Oh, of course, the plains of Shinar. Yeah.
No, not that.
Okay.
So, have you ever heard of the story of a particular little worm that Solomon managed to get his hands on?
Well, is that the Crimson Worm we were working with, or?
No.
No, this is new one. Though I wanted to tell you the name of the rock formation is the Nazla, and it's alongside the Tame Oasis, and that's an area that has a lot of rock cutting, carving similar to Petra.
So, dude, tell me, like, you think there might be this connection here? Look at this.
Okay, I'm not seeing a screen change. I don't know if that's me or you.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. I thought I did it. I guess I didn't. 1 second. Trying to find the page. Is it? Oh, it's here. Here. Present. Share screen. Share screen. Here. Here.
Absolutely bonkers on the face of it because this is a crazy story, but I'm just going to tell it like it is. And then afterwards, we're going to sort of delve into the realms of science and see if we can figure out the magic behind this mystery. This is the mystery of the Shamir worm.
Shamar.
In the old days, King David wanted to build a temple, but God said that David was not the right person to build the temple. Instead, God said that Solomon, his son, should build the temple, and he did. So why was David not the right king to build the temple? Well, it might well relate to some logistical issues revolving about the particularities of tooling. In the Bible, Exodus 20:25, God said, "And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it hewn from stone. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it." Basically, God said that if you're going to build me a temple, don't build it out of cut stone. The idea here is that anything that can be used to cut stone can also be used to cut people. It can also be used to wage war. and these implements of war, being dirty, cannot be used to cut the stone of the holy temple because it would make it unclean. So how on earth do you cut stone for a huge, majestic temple without tooling? Well, it seems that Solomon had a trick or two up his sleeve.
Any guesses?
I remember this vaguely. I don't know this story, Ariel. Thank you for sharing it.
So,
my guess is he gets the worm to do it.
But think about this. What did you tell me about that rock formation?
It looks like it was cut by a laser. Yeah.
That it wasn't hewn by stone.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just found a gem, my dude.
No, I agree. And that whole area, like I said, from Petra down through there, that's an ancient civilization that's not been explored well.
72, to be precise. And this is where it gets weird. Sleeve. 72, to be precise. And this is where it gets weird. And we need to look into the stories of allegory to get to the raw understanding. So I mentioned Solomon had 72 tricks up his sleeve. Now here's a tale. It was said that King Solomon was fabulously wealthy and a wise king, and that his power came to him because he captured 72 jinn and imprisoned them in a brass vessel. Jinn, also known as genie or demons. Imagine not having one genie in a lamp with 3 wishes, but a whole brass vessel filled with 72 of them. Also consider that lamps have always been associated throughout the ages with knowledge. It is said that each of the 72 demons that Solomon commanded had a particular power, and by commanding those demons, Solomon owned those powers. The genie in the lamp, the 72 genie in the lamp. Was it a lamp, or was it something else that glowed like a lamp? And what was in the brass vessel, if not demons? What were the 72? I'm going to explain this later, but first, it gets a little bit weirder. Now, Solomon wanted to shape his temple without using cutting implements on the stone. So how do you shape stone without cutting implements? And this is where we come to the story of King Solomon and Ashmedai. The temple, while it was being built, was made of whole draft stones, yet hammers and axes or any instrument wrought of iron was not to be heard in the temple while it was being built. Solomon inquired of his rabbis, "How should it be constructed?" They answered him, "There is a shamir worm made from the Naxian stone that Moses brought for engraving the stones of the vest worn by the high priest. It has the ability to cut through any stone, but not lead, for lead it cannot penetrate." Solomon asked his rabbis, "Whence might it be had?" They replied, "Bring hither demons, both male and female, for they know of its whereabouts, and they shall tell you." Solomon summoned his 72, brought them, binding them together, and they said to him, "We do not know where it is located, but perhaps Ashmedai, the prince of the demons, knoweth." Solomon asked them, "Where is he?" And they said to him, "He is in a certain mountain, carving out a cistern and filling it up with water from which he drinks." Solomon sent his men to capture Ashmedai, the prince of the demons, and to do so they drained his water source and replaced it with wine. And when the prince of demons returned, he drank and got drunk and passed out, and Solomon's men clamped the demon in irons. When he came around, Solomon said to him, "I ask not aught from thee, excepting one small thing, for I wish to build the temple and stand in need of the Naxian stone." He answered the king and said that the Naxian was in possession of the hoopoe bird, known as the mountain carpenter, for that bird could cut stone using the Naxian stone, something it was sworn to take care of. Solomon's men searched for a nest of a hoopoe bird that had fledglings, And when they had found one, they covered the nest over with a plate of sheer glass, and when the bird came to her nest seeking to go inside, she could not do so. She then went off and returned with a shamir, hoping to use it to cut the glass plate. Suddenly, a shout rang out at her, and she, being startled, dropped the rare stone, and they took it up and soon made their way back with their find. The bird, meanwhile, went off and hanged itself, not being able to keep her sworn oath, having lost the precious Naxian stone. As for the stone that was captured, it was said to be the size of a small piece of barley, and it had to be stored wrapped in cotton.
So much for doing that without violence.
You couldn't do violence to the stone. It didn't say you couldn't do violence to people or anybody else.
Yeah. Wait, what was this that you linked? Oh.
Oh, that was the rock formation.
Oh, wow, yeah. I don't know if you could really call it a formation. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Cotton and placed in a lead vessel. Now, there's a lot more to this story, but it's not necessarily relevant to what I'm talking about today. So I'll let you pick up on that at a later date. So it seems that Solomon acquired the Naxian stone, a stone that can cut through stone. But what was the shamir worm? I will offer an explanation for that later. Let's go back to the number 72. I mentioned earlier that Solomon had 72 demons at his disposal. Now, I have pondered on this very question for many years and have not really discounted anything. Of course, the truth may have been lost to allegory and Chinese whispers over the long ages of time. But 72 certainly is a number that keeps on popping up in a myriad of legends, notably the Earth's precession, 1 degree every 72 years. 72 major temples have been found in Angkor, the seat of the ancient Khmer Empire. In Islam, 72 is the number of sects or denominations that are doomed to hell. And the rungs of the ladder of Jacob, 72 in number, said to ascend mystically from earth to heaven. Here, in relation to Solomon, I've often wondered if the 72 related to an understanding of 72 arms of science. Perhaps Solomon had a secret book with 72 pages, and on each page a particular law of science. For instance, it could have been page 4, geometry, page 12, psychology, page 17, electricity, page 44, nuclear physics, page 52, the theory of flight, in particular, magic carpets, and so on. 72 pages of science, 72 demons. I don't know. I'm making that up. I'm not attributing any number to any area of science. I'm simply trying to express that these demons, each with their powers, could have actually been an allegory for an area of science. And imagine how powerful a king would have been with such an understanding in those old times. So let's consider for a moment that what if Solomon, with his understanding, decided to build the temple without stone-cutting implements?
So I have a feeling you've got some thoughts on that.
Especially since I looked up the shamir, and when I sit here and read, that the shamir is reputed to have existed in the time of Moses as one of the 10 wonders created on the eve of the first Sabbath. That definitely sounds like ancient technology and makes me wonder what the other 9 were.
But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like this is a very you way of looking at it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, especially since he had the Temple of Dendera pictures up there earlier.
Sorry, which one?
Oh, the Temple of Dendera, the Dendera light bulb earlier.
Oh, I'll have to look it up later because I don't know it off the top of my head.
You haven't watched enough Ancient Aliens.
I'd like to hold on to my sanity. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's entertainment. Come on. You gotta
No.
love Giorgio's hair.
Separate from any of that, it's super repetitive.
Oh, that's the point. That's like Oak Island. I love that about Oak Island. Marathons are great to sleep to. It's like you wake up and you have no idea what episode it is because every episode they repeat like half of previous episodes.
So basically, you don't feel guilty about missing it.
Exactly. Talk about decompressed storytelling.
By delving into his book of gin. And what among all of the science could he have used to cut stone? What was the Naxian stone and what was the Shamir worm? Here's an answer. A laser, or the word laser, stands for light amplified by source of emitted radiation.
Naxian stone is
If you pass a
uranium.
light through a chamber of mirrors and charge it with electrical energy, the light will be amplified and become stronger. A nuclear pumped laser does exactly the same thing, but uses a radioisotope to charge the photons of light instead of an electrical charge. Is it such a stretch to imagine a crude nuclear pump laser in the days of old? Contrary to common belief, the priests in the mystery schools were very well educated in many sciences, and lenses were known to exist in the days of old. In addition, naturally occurring radioisotopes such as uranium were scarce, but certainly available if you went looking hard enough. The myth of how they captured the Shamir worm, glass was placed over the eggs. This could well be in reference to a stone-cutting ritual where lenses were placed over the isotope to focus and amplify sunlight.
There was the rocket
Perhaps
link.
the Shamir worm was a device that contained many lenses and a radioactive isotope for the purpose of creating a nuclear.
Yeah,
Is this the Dendero light bulb?
Yep, that's a Dendera light bulb. Part of my research into this area, I feel the guy's off base on the nuclear one because they basically are, one of the areas of exploration is the serapium and the giant bats in there were used to generate basically almost like some sort of gas power via fermentation and generating power that way, almost an electric sort of power. Just sort of tagging on that one. Just research that I encountered recently.
I think the reason he's saying that is just because of the lead box.
Oh no! Everything he's saying is very supported there. I'm just saying there's an alternative to that. The Dendera one has cords and stuff, and that's could fit in there. So just tag.
Maybe it's like a similar concept, but that they use different sources of energy.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. There's a lot of stuff from back then that we do not know about.
A pumped laser, a crude nuclear pumped laser that amplified sunlight. It is said that the worm was wrapped in cotton and stored inside a lead-lined box. Was this the Ark of the Covenant? The Ark of the Covenant being a storage box for radioactive material? If it was, it would be little wonder that the enemies died when the Ark marched before an army. Just leave the golden box near an enemy's camp and they'll come out and take that precious box back into their camp with them, and like curious cats, open the box and expose their entire encampment to irradiation.
Holy
a dirty trick.
Fuck.
A dirty bomb.
That's really... Oh my... If that's what it was, that's really... Oof.
I was going to say that's a theory I had not encountered before, but that's an interesting one.
That's like...
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say it's like early nuclear warfare.
No, absolutely. And you can definitely see how that would work is, oh, giant gold box. Let's see what's in it. Oh, this stuff. Oh, we're all dead. Boom.
So a joke that I'm only making this because I can, and please no one else make this. But it basically means that Oppenheimer was, I wonder if Oppenheimer was a Cohen and he was learning from Aaron.
Who knows? I was going to say he definitely attributed ancient nuclear power. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting tie together though.
Yeah.
With an explosion of curiosity. It is said that long after Solomon's death, King Nebuchadnezzar came into possession of the Shamir worm, but it had become impotent and no longer worked. Could this be because of the half-life decay of the radioactive source?
So, in conclusion, loads of questions, not many answers, unfortunately. So, did King Solomon know about advanced science? Was the Ark of the Covenant a storage box for carrying around radioactive materials? Was the Shamir worm some kind of device for amplifying energy and cutting stone? Or did King Solomon actually command real jinn or demons, which, being bound to him, amplified his courage, will, and force? So what do you believe? What do I believe? Well, I think the world is a far stranger place than any of us could ever imagine. So I'm going to leave it up to your judgment to decide what's bright and what's weird. I'm Steve. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, probably a good place to finish off. But so Kara just said, "Hey guys, yeah, we're about to finish off Kara, but I think it would be kind of good to hear Graham's thoughts, on the opinion on the video in full, and then I'll share kind of why I thought to bring this up."
No, I find that absolutely fascinating. I had never really delved into that much at all, and it makes me wonder what. Do you have any idea? Because I'm looking here. What are the other 10 wonders at creation besides the Shamir worm?
We could look that up before I head off. But yeah, any other thoughts while I looked out?
No, it definitely ties into there was an ancient technology that was involved there, and you see in so much of like some of the Bible stories that can be related to scientific knowledge that wouldn't have been available to the people in the ancient world, like that dousing the wood with two separate types of water that when you add the two of them together, they basically burst into flame.
Wait, so that you add the other thing and it bursts into flame, you said?
Yeah, like the what was it with the contest with starting the fire with the priests.
Yeah.
Where they doused it with two types of water, and you have that definitely echoes a chemical reaction where you douse it with the one, nothing happens, or the other, but when you combine the two, you get basically the fire, the heat reaction.
So, holy shit, dude. I just looked this up. It is very, very, here, let me see. I'm trying to find the actual, with the Hebrew. One second.
No, because we're definitely onto something, because this all seems to be related to, like I said, that ancient civilization from Petra and that general area there.
Let's see. 5, 6. Wait, maybe I can. Here. Alright, so. Oh yeah, I'm glad you did as well. Also, who's Steve? I'm guessing that's the name of the guy in the video.
Yeah, thanks, Kara.
But so let's see. So, Asara Devarim. So 10 things. Nivreu be'erev Shabbat. Were created on the eve of Shabbat. Bein Hashmashot. Wait, Shamshot? What's this? Hamshashot? Wait, Hashmashot. from between. Oh, maybe it's like. So it's saying twilight. It's like between suns. I'm not completely sure. Velehan, and these are them. Pei haaretz, the mouth of the earth. Upei ha'be'er, and the mouth of the well. Upei ha'aton, the mouth of the atonot, donkey. I think. Yeah. The ha-keshet, and the rainbow. The Haman. What? Oh, the mana. The Hamate. Oh, the staff of Moses. At least it's implying of Moses, but just as a staff, which you could maybe even understand as like an Asherah. The Hashamir and the Shamir. The Hachtav and the letters, they're the writings. No, wait, what? Haktav, the written, the hamichtav, and that which is written. So writing and that which is written, the haluchot, and the tablets, the yesh omrim, and it is said, af hamazikim, if it wasn't for also the demons, the kvurato, and the grave shel Moshe, of Moses, the ilu shel Avraham, and also of Abraham. The ayelu, and the ram of Abraham, our father. The yesh. Oh, I'll bet you some Christians try to read that into saying that they're saying that, like basically this heavenly ram that was created on the eve of Sabbath, that it must be a reference to Jesus. But it's like, if you believe that, then you would have to believe that he died during, the first, basically during the first covenant he cuts with Abraham, which, I mean, I definitely see how Christians could read that into it, but it wouldn't make sense even from their own theology. But it is interesting. Let's see, and it said, also the tzava bitzvata asuya. What is this? Also tongs made with tongs? What? Tzavat? I don't know what that means. But yeah, that was interesting. I'm going to see if
I was going to say, this is probably a good place to leave off just talking about that, because this is definitely, these are all areas that we could explore for a long, long time.
Yeah, just before we do head off, though, I just want to, because this is let's see. Let's see. 1 second. Here. I can speed this up. Oh. Hold on. Right here.
When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, at the end of the creation, right before Shabbat, at Ben Hashmashot, the twilight, at that time he created an interesting creature called the Tolat Shamir, the worm called Shamir. What is that Shamir? The Shamir had a special feature that it would be able to cut through stone just by looking at it. And that was very, very important creature in order to use for the building of the Beit HaMikdash, because the Torah says that you're not allowed to use metal to cut through stones. It says, when you make for me, for the Beit HaMikdash, for the kelim of the Beit HaMikdash, when you're building the Mizbeach, lo tivneh ten gazit, do not build them with metal. Ki charbecha enafta alea v'tachalelea. Why? Because metal is used normally for swords, for arms, for weapons. That's not something you can use for Beit HaMikdash. Beit HaMikdash would be a place to spread peace around the world, and you can't use metal even for the building of the Beit HaMikdash. And therefore, Shlomo HaMelech, when he was building the Beit HaMikdash, he had that dilemma. He didn't know how he should build it. Because on the other hand, it says in the Torah, V'abayit bi'badoto even shelema masa nivna. That's how it says in Melachim Aleph. When you build the Beit HaMikdash, it needs to be complete stones. How do you build even shelema when you can't cut those stones from the mountains? How could you put it in a way that's going to look nice in Beit HaMikdash, smoothly, evenly? For that, you need something to cut through it. But the only thing you can use to cut through it is the metal, the sword, do you cut through stones without that? This is a question Shlomo HaMelech presented, and he said the following: והבית בהיבנותו, אבן שלמה מסע נבנה, אמר לה, לרבנן, שלמה המלך asked the חכמים, איך העביד? How should I build the בית המקדש? How should I make those stones? אמרי לה, איכא שמיר תדעתי משה לאבני אפוד. There is something called שמיר, the worm, that was created, and בין השמשות, as the משנה in אבות, פרק ה' משנה ו' says, 10 דברים נראו בהם בין השמשות, בערב שבת בין השמשות, one of them is the שמיר. It was a special creation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created just for the time of the בית המקדש in order to build it. After the בית המקדש, after the חורבן בית המקדש, בטל השמיר, says the Gemara in Sotah. And from here, we learn the importance of using that שמיר in בית המקדש, because otherwise you can't build the Mishkan, the בית המקדש, the אבני האפוד, also the stones that was on the ephod that Moshe Rabbeinu used. He cut through them with the שמיר, that special worm that would just look at the stone and cut evenly at the right shapes. Interesting. So the Gemara in Gittin says, Hechi ishtakach, where do you find those? Shlomo HaMelech wondered. Amrile, Aitishida v'shitin kavshinu adad. They gave him a suggestion. The wise Chachamim told him, why don't you bring 2 ghosts and pressure them, press on them, and once you press them up, one on the other, they will be tortured to the point that they'll have to stick out, and they must know where the Shamir is, because they're also spiritual. They were born at the same time in Ben HaShmashot, the Erev Shabbat. And Shlomo HaMelech said, you know what? That's a good idea. Could be that they would know. So he took the suggestion of the Chachamim, who said, Ai tishida v'shitin, kavshinu adadi, efshar deyadi, umegalu lach. Maybe they know, they would reveal that to you. So Shlomo HaMelech, Ai tishida v'shitin, kavshinu adadi, he brought those ghosts, and he pressured them, he pressed on them. Amri, they told him, Anan lo yadina, Dilma Ashmedai Malka the Shei Yada. We don't know, but we have a king that who is called Ashmedai. He's the king of the ghosts. Maybe he would know. Amar Lao, where do I find him? I didn't see him anywhere. Amrile, Ite Betura Palan, he is in a certain mountain. Karya Lebira, you should know the way he works. He builds himself such a place in order for him to be able to drink. What does he do? He digged a pit in the mountain. Umalya le Maya. He fills up that pit with water. Umechasya Betinera. He covers up that hole, that pit, with a big stone, v'chatima begushpanke, and he puts a seal to it that he knows that nobody messed around with it. Kol yoma salik lerakia. Every day he goes up to the heavens in order to learn. V'gamar metifta derakia. He learns in the heaven. V'nachit le'ara. After he finishes learning, he goes down to that mountain on earth. V'gamar metifta de'ara. He learns over there, and when he's done learning, ati sayerle legushpanke. He goes to check that his seal is still sealed and it's not broken. And then, after he sees that everything is still safe and nobody tampered around with it, megalile, he opens up the stone, veshati, and he drinks. Umechasele, vechatimle, vazil. After he finishes drinking, he feels that he's not thirsty anymore. He closes it up with the stone, seals it again, and he goes away. Says the Gemara in Gittin Samechet that when Shlomo HaMelech heard about that, and he knows that maybe this Ashmedai knows where the Shamir that he needs so much is, he decides to take action. Who did he use for that? Bnayahu ben Yoyada. Shadre lebnayahu ben Yoyada. He says, Bnayahu ben Yoyada, Yahiv le shoshilta dechakika leshem, ve'azikta dechakika leshem. He gave him a chain with the name of Hashem engraved in it, and also a lock to that chain that the name of Hashem is engraved in it. He gave him also Gevave de Amra, gave him a bundle of wool, ve'zike de Chamra, he gave him a canteen of wine, Azal kara bira mitatai. Bnayahu ben Yoyada went to that mountain, and under the place that Ashmedai had his pit, he built another pit. He digged another pit right under. What did he do? Shafinu lemaya. He made a certain hole on top that all the water empties and spills into the bottom pit. And then he clogged up that pit on top after all the water spills with that wool that he had, that now the top pit is completely empty. Satminu begava ve'de'amra ve'kara bira mi'elai. Now, he opened up on top with a small hole, v'shafchinu lechamra v'taminu. He took all the wine that he had in the canteen and he spilled it inside. After he spilled everything inside, and he closed up the place, did not tamper with the seal, he went and he waited for Ashmedai, the king of the ghosts. Salik yativ be'ilana. He went and he waited for him by a local tree to be able to view what happens. Kiata, when Ashmedai finished learning, he comes to drink. Saire legushpanka. He goes and he checks the seal. Galia, after he sees that all is good, he opens it up, he reveals what's inside. He found inside wine. How is that possible? So he thought to himself, it's got to be a miracle because nobody touched and nobody played around over here. So therefore, it's got to be.
Interesting. So chamra, it's a cognate with chamar, which is Arabic for wine.
pasuk says, let's yain o meshechar v'chol shogeh bo lo yachkam. When a person drinks wine, he becomes drunk, and all kind of bad things become and happen because of that. And the pasuk says, "Znut ve'ayin v'tiro shekach lev," because of those psukim that although weren't written yet, but they knew those psukim. Tosfot explains they already knew the terrible effect of wine, and the psukim were known to them before even they were written. He decided he's not going to drink. Lo ashti. But at a certain point, he got so thirsty that he couldn't hold back. Kitzachi, lo sagile, ishti rava vegan. So he drank after he became very thirsty, and after he got a little bit drunk, he went to sleep. Vegana. At the time, nachit ata shada beshoshilta. Right away, Nayav ben Yoyada took the chance. He came down while Ashmedai is a little bit drunk and sleeping, and he wasn't in his best ability, and he chained him with the chain that he brought with him. When Ashmedai wakes up, he had chains all over him. So he wanted to break them. He wasn't close. He was able to break them without any problem. But Nayav ben Yoda that was there warned him. Amar le shma demara alach. You should know the chains have engraved in them Shem Hashem, and you're not allowed to break Shem Hashem. If you break the chain, you're breaking the Shem of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. You should not do that. Shmedai knew very well not to mess with a chain that Hashem's name is on it. So Nayav ben Yoda told him that he has to come with him. He took him, captured him, and he brought him to Shlomo HaMelech. On the way, there's interesting stories that the Gemara says that happened that we'll skip. But when he gets to Shlomo HaMelech, he asks Shlomo HaMelech, "What do you need me for?" And Shlomo HaMelech says to him, "Lo kabaina minach midi. I don't need anything from you. Baina devanya levet hamikdash. The only thing I need is I want to build the Bet Hamikdash. V'kabaili shamira. I need the womb of the shamir. Amar le. He told him, Ledidi lo masar le. I don't have the shamir, but I can guide you where you can find it. Lesara deyama mesira. The Sar, the minister of the ocean, knows where it is. He's the one that received the shamir. He's the one that's in charge of keeping it. But you should know that he gave it over to Tarnegola Bra, a certain chicken. Tarnegola Bra. Velo ya'iv le'ela leTarnegola Bra. Why did he give it to that chicken? The meheman le hashavuate. Because he swore to him that he'll take care of it. He borrowed it in order to use the shamir for his needs, and he gave him a shavua. He swore to him that he'll return the shamir safe, untouched. What does the Tarnegola Bra do with that shamir that had the special feature of cutting like a razor through something, like laser rays through something? Maya vidbe. He sees where are mountains that don't have any population. Of cutting like a razor through something, like laser rays through something. Maya vidbe. He sees where are mountains that don't have any population. He brings it to the top of the mountain. He shows him exactly where it is. As Chachamim explains, that if you draw the lines with a pencil, he cuts through it exactly where it is. So the Tarnegola Bra shows him exactly where, and all of a sudden there's a hole in the mountain. What do you need the hole for? He takes seeds, he plants them there, seeds of trees. And all of a sudden the place becomes all populated, because the place becomes now with trees and gardens and crop and all kind of other things that would be possible to bring people to live. So he said, okay, if that's the case, they checked and they saw that this chicken has also chicks. What they did, they saw where the chicks are, and they covered it with a glass, see-through glass. When the Ternakol comes, he comes to reach his chicks, his children. So he's trying to reach his children. He can't reach them. Why? The glass. He's separating between him and the chicks. What should he do? He brings the Tolat Shamir, he brings that worm, and he puts it there in order to cut through the glass. They should be able to get through. Right away, Nayav ben Yoyada started screaming very loud to scare the chicken. Right away, the chicken escapes from the loud sound, and Nayav ben Yoyada was able to grab the shamir that the Tarnegol just brought. What do you do with the shamir? Now you can come to the Mikdash and build it. Now you can take the stones and cut through to them exactly to the size. But that shamir had interesting features. Says the Gemara in Sotam Memchet Amud Bet that how do you keep the shamir? Where do you store it? You have to store it in lead, because the shamir has a feature that it can cut through stone, but it can't go through lead. How do you store the shamir? You wrap him in wool. You put it inside lead. That's how you keep it. And that's what it says in the Psukim in Zechariah, Zayin Yud Bet, when he gives et tochecha to Am Yisrael. Says velibam samu shamir mishmoa et Torah. They put their heart like shamir from listening to the Divrei Torah that Hakadosh Baruch Hu gave them. What does that mean? Rashi says shamir tolat chazak. It's a strong worm. It's stronger. Gave them et Torah.
That's interesting. So he's trying to say that shamir in this context, where it's saying shmo shamir, like basically where protect their, what is it, like shmo, like shamir. Mishamu. I would have to look this up. This wait, let's see. Shoot. Dang it. Is 712. Let's see. Here. Shamu. They put, or they made in their hearts Shamir, thorn, adamant, flint, a sharp stone, flint, perhaps a diamond. Shamir. Oh, interesting. So it actually does mean it in this context. I never knew that. Interesting. Fascinating. Here, let's finish this.
They put their heart, like Shamir, from listening to the Divrei Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them. What does that mean? Rashi says, Shamir tolat chazak. It's a strong worm. It's stronger from the stone that he's trying to break. Tolat chazak mitzur, marim oto ala even. You show him where the stone you're trying to cut, vehi mitbakat, and the stone opens up. Amazing worm that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created just for that time that Beit HaMikdash needs to be built. And as soon as Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, as I explained before, the Shamir was not useful anymore, and batel Shamir.
Wow. And that's a good place to end off. But,
no, sounds good. I'm here.
This was fun, and hopefully we can do this again soon so we can actually play the game.
No, absolutely. Fun creating the character, going into some of the history of the area, and took a total unexpected turn here at the end. I shared a link with you on the private chat just for you to take a look at afterwards. So,
could you actually just send it to me in Discord? It would probably be easier.
Okay, I'll do it through Discord. No problem.
Yeah. So Kara said that she had an epiphany today about Matryoshka dolls and Kashi's death from Slavic folk tales. I don't completely understand, but I'd be interested to hear it. Beware, the underscore said sub just woke up, and then Kara said stop. And now it's time to go to sleep, at least for me, a little bit. That way I can get like 5 hours of sleep before my class.
Nah, sounds good. I'm going to grab some sleep too. You have a good one, Ariel. Thanks again. It's always fun with you.
Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Want to tell the Rebbe the words of the new song that we're singing with Mashiach, right? So I'm just going to read them. Am Yisrael, have no fear. Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now. We don't want to wait. Okay? Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, oh yeah, Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be this year. Am Yisrael, have no fear, Mashiach will be here this year. We want Mashiach now, we want Mashiach now, we don't want to